to let the dog out. So it snowed yesterday, right? Wintry wonderland, kind of nice. I went to let the dog out, and I didn't quite see what was happening outside, but I heard it.
Oh, yeah.
And the rain is a kind of rain that it's just a gross rain.
That you knew was going to freeze also.
Yes.
Right away.
In whatever snow fell yesterday was slippery. So, yeah, it's pretty nasty outside. So plan accordingly. It was expected to be kind of like this. And after all of this rain, it's going to snow again. So, yeah, a wintry mix.
Water on the bottom and then ice and then snow?
Yeah, snow
is what
water,
we're headed for?
Ice, snow, all that. Yeah, pretty
That's
nasty.
where we need like a new word. Like it's like a shell out there. Like, the shell that you can like pour on your ice cream and then it freezes so that you've got the ice cream underneath and the shell. That's what the ground feels like right now.
Yeah.
Like I'm stepping on top of that shell and then my foot is going down into like a puddle that I didn't even know was there underneath, which I guess actually might be better than just walking on straight ice. I don't even know what's better. The possibility of slipping or just having a foot submerged by water, because that's what you have outside right now.
It's nasty. Well, good morning. We're hanging out today on a Thursday. We'll talk with Brian Koziel at 6:30 about last night's Four Nations and the Genesis, because one of the elevated golf events is on the way. Paul Hamilton as well. Plenty to get to. Four Nations last night. Star of the show was, of course, the 3-2-1 scoring system. Mm-hmm. It's front and center. It's on full display. We'll get to that in a minute. But
they went for it at the end, right?
They did.
Yeah, very much so.
Of course, the 3-2-1 score. I mean, I will give you the full-throated 3-2-1 explanation. Not that you need convincing, but for anyone out there that's saying, like, how big of a deal could it really be? It's on full display with the U.S. playing Finland tonight. The winners, if they win a regulation, have the best win, and they're in first place, and it's not on some tiebreaker we have to explain. They just have more points. It would be a beautiful, beautiful thing. But the game itself, man, the biggest upset of all time, half kidding, is that Sweden got back into that game because the Canadians looked like the Monstars for the first 10 minutes.
I thought the game, I bet Sweden to win that game in regulation yesterday, which you got great odds. Like it was almost plus 400 for that. And I felt like after 5 minutes that I was like not even going to come close.
Yeah,
like I felt like it was dead within 5 minutes. Canada. When did Sweden get their first shot on goal? Like 15 minutes into the game. It took forever for them to get anything.
A shot.
Yeah,
it took forever to get a shot. And the Canadian power play was buzzing. Their first power play was like a globetrotter play.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, never mind. Not only did I think that Canada looked like they would win the game 7-1, I thought, okay, they're not going to lose a game in this tournament.
Yeah.
And sure enough. What ended up happening, Joe? Wasn't it that their goaltender let them down and let Sweden back in the game?
Uh-huh.
There's a bad goal?
100%.
That's really what it was?
I think he had two, really. Like the first one that Brodin scores for Sweden is not an easy one to stop because it's high and it does, I think, maybe even go top shelf, but it was middle of the net. He had two goals that were scored in the middle of the net.
Yep.
And, the last one that he lets in, or not the last one, the second goal, just a shot down the middle, right? That one was the middle of the net. That's why I thought that they could lose in a tournament like this.
It's one of the reasons they did not win this game. So, yeah, it was great though, right? It was definitely anybody wondering, myself here, about how intense it would be, what it would look like. It was absolutely a high intensity hockey game, best on best. You couldn't possibly put enough words together to say how much better it was than just one of these all-star games where Nikita Kucherov doesn't take it seriously and skates half-ass.
Yeah.
You couldn't possibly say enough words about how much better it was than something like one of those.
It's just not even comparable, right? It's not even remotely close. And it's a card they have always had the ability to pull that the other leagues don't. Right? Like we sit around here once a year, All-Star season, with the Pro Bowl and the NHL All-Star Game and the NBA All-Star Game all kind of happening around the same time. And every year it's, okay, how do we fix this? Let's make this better. Nobody likes it except for the kids, which is really who it was meant for in the first place. But how do we fix it? And there really isn't an answer, except I think the NHL kind of always had this card to pull. They always could just do this. Like, this isn't that complicated. This isn't that many players involved. It's 4 teams worth of guys. You put the flags on their crest, and you throw it into a tournament format, and they're going to be what was happening last night. Dahlin throws McDavid to the ice, right, in the first period. By the time the second period starts, like, it was notable to me that every time a guy had the puck, he was getting hit. Like, not quite playoff intensity, but I thought it was a lot.
I thought it was playoff intensity. You just don't have you don't have rosters that are going to do a lot of, well, I don't want to say they're doing a lot of hitting, but especially in the early stages of that game, I saw a couple of Canadian writers and hockey writers saying, like, don't get this wrong. Structurally, there is defense here, even though it looks like it's a wide open game. And the reason it might look like that is if you had 10 McKinnons on the ice, Joe, you would get the fastest game of all time. It might not look like it, a lot of defense is being played just because that's the nature of the way it is played when he's out there. It is nonstop. It is super fast, and, whatever. I thought the whole thing was great. Highest reviews for the Four Nations, right down to the ice surface, which has Four Nations on one side and then Confrontation de Nations on the other.
I did like
which
that.
Is really, that's what it should have been called. It should have been called the Confrontation of Nations.
The Confrontation of Nations.
We should have called it that. In French, it's got a better name. Four Nations.
I mean, it rhymes.
Okay. Yes.
Confrontation of Nations.
There's a 4 in there, too. Confrontation of Four Nations, they call it. Okay, and that's just it's just a better name. It's a missed opportunity. It's okay. We'll pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off.
Well, at least half the tournament's going to have that.
Yeah. Tonight, the U.S. So what do you got on it? You got Dahlin thoughts. You got Team USA thoughts. You got presentation thoughts. Like, what jumps out at you? You think I'm kidding when I say 3-2-1. Like, the 3-2-1 is, to me, a big story here, and also extended overtime, a 10-minute overtime.
Yeah.
When did the goal get scored? It got scored into the period of time where they would have been a shootout.
It would have been
6 minutes in.
Yep. We need your politician from Connecticut to get on the phone with the NHL because they started that game. The official puck drop said 8:10 on the apps that I was looking at, and when did that?
8:24.
Was it 8:24?
It was 8:24.
Okay, so we got a lot of previews last night, which is fine. Like, I don't mind the ceremony and everything, right? Like, they're introducing the teams, and there's Daniel Alfredsson's on the Sweden bench. Like, okay. Like, that was all fine. Here's Mario Lemieux, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, just start that all at 7:45.
But there are at least 2 figures. One very in particular. Why was he there?
Who am I missing? Who was there?
Austin Matthews.
Why
is Austin Matthews being introduced? He's on a team that plays tomorrow. Is that why? Was this
the start of the tournament? And is he even the captain of the U.S.?
That's why this took so long. Mike Richter and Austin Matthews got introduced. They almost kind of treated it like a little mini opening ceremonies.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, that's right. I think Matthews is the captain of the team. So did they introduce the Finnish captain too?
I don't even know.
I didn't know.
I was cleaning the house, and I was so excited to watch this thing start at 8, and movie trailers, movie previews. 8:24. All right, let's go. And I'm kind of laughing because as they're doing the introductions, I'm thinking, of course they picked a place where they're going to have to do the introductions in 2 languages, thereby making it take even longer to get us to the actual hockey.
Yeah.
But the quality of hockey, you started to say this. I had a thought about the game and the way that it looked last night that I know is not really rational because there probably aren't enough good players to make a game look like that every single game, right? We know that.
In the NHL?
Yes. There aren't enough players to make it look that good, to play that fast. You don't have 30 McKinnons that you can spread around the league and 30 McDavids and 30 even Colton Parekos, whatever. It made me think how the NHL, we love hockey and we hate the NHL. Isn't that a fairly normal kind of thing to feel because of the way they run their league, from the 3-2-1 point system to offside reviews and stopping games? It just feels like sometimes
the way they deal with suspensions and hits and stuff. Just it's almost like every layer of what they do feels like it just like is a head scratcher.
Yeah, and maybe that's unfair, but the way that I thought about it last night was when they let this out and let everyone see the beauty and the speed and the way this game can be played, it makes me feel like, man, the NHL kind of really holds this sport hostage because at its best, it's so incredible. And the NHL, it's also the game's healthy and it's in a good space. And I'm not here to sit here and trash it. It's just you wish you could get games like that a lot more often. And the fact that it was the first time in how many years? 10 years?
9 years. Yeah.
It's kind of incredible. It took that long for this league to get its act together to give that to us.
Yeah.
And the good news, of course, is that they've already announced they're going to do this every 2 years now. So it's going to be Olympics and then World Cup of Hockey alternating every 2 years.
Right.
So, okay, mix it in. That's what you get. You're going to get best on best in alternating every other year between the World Cup of Hockey and the Olympics. So we're going to get it more often, but, man, it just jumps out when you actually see it.
Yeah. And I guess the NHL criticism for me and why it's been 9 years, and this is why Bettman can drive me crazy with a lot of stuff, the way the NHL operates, not just him, is why has it been 9 years? Why was last night so cool? Why did we miss it so much? Because they use it as a bargaining chip. Everything that they seem to do in the league is, can we use this as a bargaining chip in labor negotiations? That's how they operate. And that's why there wasn't Olympics a couple of times. That's why there haven't been these other tournaments, I think, because they've kind of put it to the players, say, okay, you want to play for Team USA, huh? You want to play for Team Canada? Okay, well, you got to give us something then. You got to give us an additional percentage of revenue in our revenue split. Just it's gross how they've done that. Where I'm not saying no other sports leagues are like that, but I watch what Adam Silver does with the NBA, and he doesn't operate that way. Like, he just does, is this better for the sport? Okay, well, that's better for my long-term vision then of my league. That's how they operate. So there's definitely frustration on that front, but I'm just glad to have it. I am hopeful that they are true to their word. This will be a thing every other year. And it won't always be as good as it was last night, right? No. Like, if they go to a World Cup format, the one thing that holds back best on best international hockey a little bit is last night you get Canada and Sweden. And like you said, first couple minutes, it's like, wow, this looks like the Monstars against, who? And that's like the third best team there is that they were playing across from. Like, there's not this long list of teams that you could bring. Like, if they do a World Cup format, I'll be interested to see how many teams they bring. Because if I get Canada versus, you've seen tournaments, you've seen Canada versus Norway last night. How long do we have that game on for? Because it might be 6-0 by the end of the first period.
Right. To this point, there are other international games that were being played. I saw somebody pointing out, like, Hong Kong and Japan or Chinese Taipei. Like, there's another international tournament happening right now.
Right.
And yeah,
like D2 double IHF or something.
Yeah,
I think that exists.
That's where you really can't get on hockey because it's not soccer. Soccer, you have
right. Soccer,
20, 20 countries that you could watch, maybe more than that, and think like I've got my money's worth. In hockey, you might be at 5.
Right. If you're right. So maybe you invite a couple of more and you throw on a World Cup. So I'm just glad to have it. I'm glad that the game was entertaining. I'm glad that the players definitely were into it and were physical and looked like they cared. I could have used a few more power plays getting called because that was a spectacle right away. And how many more were called after that? Was there one?
Yeah.
There was one more penalty called after that early one in the first minute. So that would be the other thing I would hope that they don't just let them play. Like, we're here to see the skill, and when you see the skill is when these teams are on the power play. So that's a nitpicky thing, but I just thought I think it met expectations last night. Yeah. I thought it definitely met expectations.
Yeah, it made me excited to see the rest of the tournament. Made me excited to see Team USA tonight against Finland. Made me excited for Saturday, Canada-USA.
It also made me pray for Henry Jokiharju, who's going to have to play a lot of minutes for Finland, and seeing the level of forwards that you have in this tournament, it's like, wow, look out. That's going to be tough for some guys.
The other thing the Four Nations offer is that, football does this a little bit. I'm trying to think of the sports that are best for this, and they probably all do it to some level. The NBA, sure. So, whatever. If you have long careers, hockey might be. Let me start again. Would you agree? Hockey has the longest careers for the great players on average. LeBron still playing is kind of like, wow, LeBron is still playing.
Yeah.
Same with Durant. I feel like in hockey it's very normal. The fact that we're watching Crosby and McDavid both play on a team like this.
With Crosby still being, like, amazing, too.
Yeah. There's something to that where you can have two players. I mean, if Connor Bedard were on this Canadian team, which he probably could be, you could have guys 20 years apart and they're playing and you don't really notice things missing a beat. And again, like I said, with LeBron, you would get that. And with Durant, you would get that, too, who's been playing forever. But that's another nice little function of these international tournaments is how old was McDavid when Crosby got drafted? Was he 6? You know, you just have guys playing with their heroes for their country, and that's also an easy thing to line up is country. It's like, you grow up playing for your country. I thought TNT did a great job of introducing the entire tournament and the importance of playing for your country with these guys. So I'm all the way in. I thought everything about it really worked.
Yeah. McKinnon and Crosby, they pointed out, was like they've played. They're playing together on the same line, and McKinnon grew up watching him. They're from the same hometown. They're both from Nova Scotia. So you had that connection there.
Cole Harbor, right?
Cole Harbor, yeah, I think that's right. I think that's probably right about even more than
the generational crossover, I guess, is the
yeah.
That's
All
that.
Probably even more true than like quarterbacks in football, right? But even that, like, you're not. Like, it's the other positions, isn't it? It's like the quarterback and the receiver's not playing at that high level at 37 years old.
Right.
So
and you also, I guess the biggest part of it is in football, the quarterback can't play with the quarterback he grew up loving. The best we've got is Brady and Mahomes played against each other. That's not the same as Mahomes playing with the quarterback he, idolized his entire career, which is something that hockey does give us.
That's right. Yeah, we definitely got that. We got it at least with Crosby, right?
Yep.
I don't know how many other stories we'll have like that. I mean, well, maybe for Sweden, like, I don't know. I didn't hear Dahlin talk about this, but did Dahlin grow up watching Erik Karlsson? Maybe not like when he was a little kid, but when he was a teenager.
Yeah.
Like, and he's out there with him on the same ice last night making passes together. Karlsson would have been drafted when Dahlin was 9 years old. So, there could be a bunch of those, I think, around this tournament. So
803-0550 if you want to throw a phone call our way or just give us a thought on the tournament. The highlight of the tournament for Sabres fans is what? Dahlin decking McDavid?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, he decked McDavid, and not on an open ice hit so much as just a man's move.
Yeah, McDavid got him. McDavid got him up high a little bit, and then Dahlin just like kind of looked up like what, and then threw him to the ice basically.
Yep. Let's get to Paul in Buffalo, who's called in on the game and on Dahlin himself as well. Good morning, Paul.
Guys, how are you? I thought it was a spectacular hockey game. And you called it right. The Canadian forwards specifically came out like the Monstars. They were unbelievable. And I must say, it has been a privilege to be my age, which is mid-40s. I have watched Sidney Crosby's entire career. His first assist on the power play, that is legendary to me. That was just uncanny, behind the back, backhand, through the middle of a Swedish defenseman, and Nate McKinnon was just thunderstruck that pass came to him. Unbelievable. I will say the thing that changed the momentum a little bit, I think, was Dahlin throwing Connor McDavid on his keister. And then if you look in the second period, McDavid and Dahlin's shift mirrored one another, and I thought he got the better of McDavid multiple times. And then for no apparent reason that I can detect, his coach benched him in the third period. He did get, funny enough, he was on the ice for the final shift of the game in regulation, and then he didn't see a second in overtime. Meanwhile, Victor Hedman, God bless him, he couldn't move out there in overtime. I mean, Nathan McKinnon turned him inside out multiple times in overtime. Meanwhile, they have Rasmus Dahlin stapled to the bench. That coach needs to figure out what the hell he's doing because he's got his best player stapled to the bench. I thought there were points in the first period of that game. Rasmus Dahlin controlled it. I don't know what the coach saw that I missed, but I thought he was arguably Sweden's best player for the 17 minutes he got to play. I have no idea what I missed, guys. For Team USA, you have an excellent center group against you today. Barkov and Aho, top two centers for Finland. That's their best group as their centers. Our forwards, though, they're big, strong, and fast, and not to look past Finland, but when we play Canada Saturday night, we need our big, strong, fast forwards to play some bully ball with those Canadian forwards, because I think that's how we're going to get them, and then we'll take care of their Swiss cheese goaltending. 8-4, U.S. over Canada Saturday night, guys. Have a good one.
8-4. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, play like big. The other thing, as you mentioned, like play big boy hockey, or you need these forwards to do this. I think it's something that was said by, I don't know if it was Crosby or some player said it. The layoff for international hockey and the fact that McDavid and these guys had not really dressed for international hockey, of course, everyone should have expected them to come out guns blazing. First time you're able to put that on in that kind of format, if you grew up watching these international games, and I feel like the U.S. will be the same. Mm-hmm. You know, Eichel and Matthews, and it should just be absolutely bonkers tonight. On Dahlin, I guess, isn't that Dahlin's game? This game is going furious 100 miles per hour. Canada's coming 100 miles per hour. And what do you want out of Dahlin? What his game is, which is, Paul said the term he used was control it. When he gets it, he's just kind of slow and smoother. He's going to take a breath for everybody. And the game slows down for him is something people would say. I would say like he slows the game down altogether and kind of just it becomes less frantic once he starts to put his imprint on a game.
He, in the first period, I don't know that I agree the whole game. First period, I did say, like, I thought he was their best player. Because what it was like Sweden was like hit in the mouth immediately with the speed of Canada, and like all they were doing was just chipping the puck forward. Who was the one dude that was holding onto the puck and like was actually possessing it? It was Dahlin.
Yeah.
And he actually they had like no shots in the first period. The one chance they did was Dahlin holding the puck. Oh, and a lane opened up, and then he found Eric Sinek backdoor, who missed it. Could have easily been a goal. I tweeted this. I was watching Dahlin every shift the way I would imagine a parent watches their kid out on the ice playing junior hockey. Like, I was getting, like, I'm watching him primarily. He makes even a little good play, and I'm like, all right, there we go. That's my guy. And then when he got benched, I'm like yelling, like, what did he get benched for? And overtime goes for 7 minutes, and same, I saw Hedman. Hedman was great, I thought, in regulation, but he's definitely not like a 3-on-3 merchant. Like, he's not skating, up and down the ice like he would have 5 years ago. So when I look up and I see Dahlin had the fewest shifts of their 6 defensemen, I'm like legitimately mad by that.
Yeah. Because
there's no way to me that these are good defensemen. But how do we think of Dahlin? He is... I think of him as a Norris caliber defenseman, despite the fact he has not really come close to winning the Norris yet.
That's right.
And when he's playing less than Matthias Ekholm and an old Erik Karlsson and Gustav Forsling and Jonas Brodin, again, these are good players, but like Dahlin is supposed to be a tier above all of that, I thought.
Yeah. And underlying numbers back all that stuff on Dahlin too. My thing about that was in the first period, I just appreciated it as you're talking about how they got back in the game and all that. They interviewed the Sweden coach, and it's 2-0, and they don't have a shot on goal yet. And the on-ice reporter asks the coach, I forget his name, I apologize, what they got to do. And Joe, I was playing a little game called Pucks to the Net. Will he say pucks to the net? And he's the first coach in the history of coach interviews who did not say puck to the net. He's talking execution, pass it well. And I thought, like, now it's best on best, baby. They're not just pucks to the net here. They're thinking, what are we going to do to get back in this game?
Or is that a Swedish coach being a Swedish coach?
Maybe. It might be. 803-0550 is our phone number. The Four Nations underway. Canada wins in overtime last night, and Team USA and Finland play tonight. The Genesis goes this weekend, an elevated PGA event, so that's kind of cool. Talk to Brian Koziel about both the Four Nations and the Genesis coming up on the other side. And Sal's State of the Bills tight ends is going to go at WGR550.com today. We were going to have Alec Anderson, who signed a one-year deal with the Bills. He's going to move in next week. So maybe Monday, Alec Anderson will talk with the Bills offensive lineman, who's a bit of a household name as a sixth man on the offensive line. So plenty to get to. Our draft of coaching changes, lots and lots of your phone calls along the way. 803-0550 to join us on WGR.
The Four Nations Faceoff got rolling last night, and the first game goes to Canada, 4-3 in overtime over Sweden. They were up 2-0 over Sweden in this game, but they fought back and went to OT. It's a 3-2-1 point system, so only 2 points awarded to Canada, 1 to Sweden because the game went to overtime. Tonight is USA and Finland before the big game on Saturday between Canada and the U.S., which will be Saturday night at 8 o'clock. But tonight at 8 o'clock is USA and Finland. That game will be televised on ESPN. To football, Travis Kelce on his podcast says that he is going to take some time to decide what he wants to do in 2025, and that opens the door a little bit to whether or not he will retire or not. It's at least possible. Elsewhere around the league, the Jacksonville Jaguars announced that they have interviewed Bills Director of Player Personnel Terrence Gray for their GM opening. Gray's received interviews a couple of times over the years for other GM vacancies. He seems to be a real candidate in Jacksonville. And we have the Genesis this week in the PGA Tour. Tiger Woods withdrawing from that tournament. We'll talk more about it with Brian Koziel, as well as the hockey coming up next. Those are your Paddock Chevrolet sports headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business.
Marner, full stride into the zone. Mitch Marner scores! Mitch Marner! An overtime winner for Team Canada!
Four Nations Game 1 goes to Canada. So they have 2 points in the standings. Sweden has 1. And if somebody wins in regulation tonight, they would have the most points. 3 for a regulation win. Because that's better than winning when there are 3 people on the ice. You know, if you think overtime and shootouts are a gimmick, there's a great way to fix that. The 3-2-1 point system. Welcome to the future, folks. We're here. We've watched the NHL implement it to a point. It's nice. Jeremy and Joe on WGR Granite's in the Four Nations tournament. Brian Koziel joining us on the Western Hotline. Chat a little bit about what we saw last night from Rasmus Dahlin and the tournament itself, and also roll into the Genesis, a big elevated event in the PGA this week. So we'll chat about that as well. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning.
Did you have the same kind of universally good, positive review of last night's game that Joe and I both had?
I did. Especially, I thought, for sometimes as bad as the overtimes tends to be in the NHL, I thought, this one had the intensity. It had, definitely those end-to-end rushes that we're always looking for to watch for. But the fact that it was 10 minutes, it almost felt like, okay, someone is going to win this here. Like the chance of it going to a shootout, I thought was pretty low. And it did go into what I guess you'd say the extra time would be there, because it was 6:06 was the time of the goal. So it lasted in there a little bit more. The 3-on-3, as you said, is a little bit different way to win, but I'd still rather have it be 3-on-3 than have it be shootout. So I don't know, if some of this, since the NHL is a part of this, if they're tinkering with some things to see, hey, how could this work? I know the 3-2-1 system is something you've been talking about for years. They're trying here for this tournament. They're trying the 10-minute overtime for this tournament. Most of the things are the same NHL rules, but I'm curious if this is maybe something that they're thinking, hey, what would it look like, if it played out in the league? I've always thought the argument that the league would say against the 3-2-1 is that maybe you get less of what they're looking for, which is keeping teams alive, because it's, you can get these loser points, and a regulation win doesn't necessarily separate you as much from the other teams. In the end, I think the 3-2-1 is a perfect format to decide who the best teams are, but the league may love the fact that there's parity and that there isn't much separation, and it keeps almost everybody alive. And, not to bring up a negative this morning, but really, other than the Sabres, every team in the East is alive right now with 30-some games to go. So maybe that's what the league wants, even though they know truly maybe it doesn't show who the best teams are in the standings as much as maybe it should.
it would still, to get on that point, it would still have all those teams alive, and I think they'd be more alive because think of the Flyers here, right? You mentioned like every team but the Sabres. The Flyers are 6 points out behind Detroit, and they have to jump 7 teams. But what they could do in the 3-2-1 is just keep winning in regulation. And if there's a game where Boston and Columbus are playing and that game goes to the Boston-Columbus goes to overtime, that's a 3-point game. The Flyers win, and they've gained on 2 teams in one night. And to me, that is obviously, that's a way to keep the standings more alive. So I've been, of course, waiting for the NHL to figure this out for, 15 years. And I've just always felt like the idea that the standings would be too pulled apart just isn't true. But whatever, we'll see if they can.
I think that's a good point. While maybe it may look like you're farther apart in some sense, the availability to jump teams and keep yourself alive though still is higher because of the fact you're right. You have the opportunity to gain 3 on a night versus 2. So. Yeah, I think in that sense you could argue that it is better. So now if we had that this year, would we say Buffalo is still in it in some sense? Hey, we just have to win a lot in regulation in order to keep things going. I guess that would be an argument too, that you could say that look, even the Sabres are alive. We know the max they can pick up in each game now is 2. If they had a possibility of getting 3, then we might sit here thinking that they are still at least a little bit more alive than they actually are.
Brian Koziel with us on the Western Hotline. The tournament itself, the quality of the hockey, the physicality of it, it feels like it met every expectation, Brian. And I'm glad that it got to be a close game last night because I was, I don't know if you were thinking the same. Like within 5 minutes, it felt like that could have been a blowout game.
Yeah, Canada scores less than a minute in, and I was like, oh boy, here we go. And they are. That Canada team is so fast. They pass the puck so well. Just you think, McDavid's off the ice here, they can take a breather. Now, Crosby played like he was 25 last night with the way he was going around passing the puck. They roll out McKinnon. They're loaded, obviously. Not a surprise that I guess on paper you'd say they're the favorite, but I love the fact that it got close. Obviously, these 4 teams right now. Who can take down Canada, who can take out the United States. That's probably the headline. But I love that it got close. The fact that there was a moment there where you thought, at least I did, I was like, hey, Canada could lose this opening game in Montreal. And I was thinking, like, what's the scene like? They were, there was so much uproar at the World Juniors when Canada didn't even get into one of the medal games. And I was thinking here, oh boy, if they lose this one right away here, like the crowd could get hostile real quick here, or it'd be stunned silence, I guess, in some sense too. So I was glad that it was close. Obviously, for a tournament to work too, you don't want it to be totally one-sided. So the fact that Sweden had in overtime some really good looks to win. That was when Jordan Binnington actually, I thought, was at his best in the game.
Yeah, he had a couple moments, but I saw you call this an overreaction. One of the Canadian media guys, Brian, like right after that, was it the Kempe goal, or maybe right after it was tied, is just, this is how Canada would, I think, operate in a game like this if they were to lose, is we need to have a national convention to find a goaltender in this forsaken country. Like, we've got all these great hockey players. Why don't we have any goalies? Which I guess you could still kind of say that. It is weird that they have superstars at every position except goaltender, but
yeah, I think Canada's that's their spot where everybody thinks that they're weaker than the rest of the 4 countries, and I think Binnington obviously played fine last night to win, but I could see where maybe if they don't win this tournament, that could be the reason.
Yeah.
Brian Koziel on the Western Hotline. Brian, it's a big week in the world of golf, the Genesis Invitational, which has been relocated to Torrey Pines. So you get an elevated event, and you get it at a great course as well. I mean, not to say the Genesis course. Was it normally at Riviera? Where is it, Brian?
Yeah, normally this is at Riviera. Due to the Los Angeles fires, they moved it. The course itself, they said, didn't suffer damage, but they just didn't want to use resources and security and police and, all the things that go into running a major event. So, for anybody that went to Oak Hill a few years ago, you know what I'm talking about with all those things. So they wanted to be sensitive to that, and that's why they moved it back to Torrey Pines. I know. So Tiger Woods is the quasi-host for this event. You said he backed out. I know during your update. He also, being from that area, said, like, look, we can't. This would be something that maybe we can support instead of being a strain. So they're going to do a lot of charitable work this week. A lot of the funds, a lot of the proceeds, a lot of the ticket sales, all these sort of things are going to go towards relief efforts. So that obviously is all positive. So yes, back to Torrey Pines where it was a few weeks ago, but a lot of the players didn't play in that tournament a few weeks ago because that one wasn't labeled elevated. This one is. So you're getting Scotty Scheffler, you're getting Rory McIlroy, you're getting Morikawa, you're getting Oberg, you're getting JT, you're getting Jordan Spieth, who played great last night. So a ton of the big names are in it this week, and you said it, at a recognizable great course, so it should be fun.
Brian, on the state of golf right now, for anyone that might be, occasionally seeing the headline, where are things on the eventual reunification? I saw Rory yesterday had a quote about how he's making more money now and he has LIV to thank, which, he never went to LIV, but the fact that he's acknowledging that, and Mickelson responded to that thread in social media with a couple of clapping hands. Where do things stand in terms of getting all the best golfers back on the best courses in the same events?
Sounds like it's very close. I think what Rory said, Adam Scott did too. They met with basically the government and Donald Trump to say that, look, they needed government permission here to see if they could get this quote partnership going with ownership with the PIF fund, which of course owns LIV, this Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, to try to see if that and the PGA Tour, if they could essentially come to this financial agreement. And Rory said it was successful. So I think that was what I think they're nervous about, is there going to be a government hang up on them approving whatever deal that they come about with. So it sounds like what McIlroy said is that that was positive. They want to get it back going. Rory said we wouldn't be playing for a $20 million pot this week if it wasn't for LIV. So it sounds like all these sides are softening. Honestly, even if you watch Golf Channel, the most outspoken person on LIV is Randall Chambly, one of their analysts. He has even come around and said, I spoke with President Trump. I spoke with some of these players and their meeting. He's like, and now I can see why maybe this can work. So everybody is softening. Even the harshest critics are, to think that, hey, okay, this is something that can happen to try to get the best players to playing more often than not. You saw maybe even over the last week or so, the U.S. Open is opening up an exemption for the top LIV points player that's not already exempt. The Open Championship is looking to do the same in some capacity with a couple of exemption spots. So I think it's coming around. I think it's all financials. I think it's not solely about how do we get the players on the course together that we all want to see. I think it's a lot of legal and, paperwork and things like that that's holding things up, to maybe why we haven't had an official announcement yet.
Yeah, because from that front, Brian, when all the big names were going there, what we remember is a lot of them were kind of guys that were at the end of their careers or, past their prime. And now, from that front, it's more about finances, because who would be the golfers that they would be desperate to get back in? Rory mentioned DeChambeau, having him back on the tour would be good, but isn't it just it's DeChambeau, Rahm, and Cam Smith? Isn't that Cam really Smith, it?
Dustin Johnson and Mickelson. I mean, even those guys might not compete on the level anymore.
That's what I mean, though. How many of the LIV guys now are still considered the best in the world? Is it maybe it's 4, but it's not it's the whole tour.
But those guys, they bring people to the events.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. I think DeChambeau, probably you'd say him and Rahm are at the top, and then Cam Smith. And I guess maybe I'd even throw Koepka in there. I still think he can play at a high level in a big-time event. Yeah, DJ has fallen off in terms of his play. Now, again, I don't know, part of the reason he went to LIV, he wanted the I'm only going to play once every 6 weeks kind of lifestyle. So I don't know seriously how hard he's, going at his game. I'm not saying he's not trying, but yeah, Mickelson's at the back end of his career. And then all those European players, Poulter and Garcia and some of those, Keimer, they were all toward the end anyway. Were they big names? Were they recognizable? Did they, get you to watch at some point? Sure. But I think in terms of the competitiveness of golf, it's probably 3 or 4 in my opinion. Cam Smith was playing as good as anybody when he left. I would put Rahm definitely there. I think if the PGA Tour said we can take one back, I think Rahm would definitely be the choice. But 3 to 4, I think, is right.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Koziol. Brian, what's up with Tee to Green this week?
All right. Well, we just did a podcast last night. We talked about some of these things, but we also talked about slow play. That's been a big topic on the PGA Tour, and it was kind of our topic was how much do fans actually care? Do they care that golf's on at noon on a Sunday on Golf Channel and then goes over to CBS and then doesn't end until 6:30 or 6:45? So we all admitted that it's slow, and we all admitted that pros should not be playing a round in 5 hours, but we wanted to know, does it actually matter? If it's on TV, does it matter if you're going from shot to shot to shot, if guys in between are taking long? So that was kind of what we discussed on our podcast. If anybody wants to check it out, it's on our social media pages at T2G Buffalo. And then our first show is March 1st. So we're about 2.5 weeks away from our first show. It'll be at Golf Dojo, our first show. And then we'll be heading across courses across Western New York from every Saturday going forward after that.
Very good. Thanks, Brian.
Okay, guys, have a great day.
Brian Koziol of Tee to Green on the Four Nations and the upcoming golf event, the Genesis. When we get back, any DK Metcalf people out there, it might be time to put that to bed. I think that idea is dying here. Get your quote about Metcalf from the offensive coordinator, from their head coach. This one does not appear to be smokescreen. I'll be shocked if Metcalf is moved. We'll tell you exactly why when we return. Jeremy and Joe here on WGR. All right, good morning. It's messy out there, so plan accordingly. Drive safe, walk safe, whatever you're going to do. Nasty. Winter weather advisory in effect, of course, and really nasty. Snow, then rain. So on DK Metcalf real quick, and I want to get to a bigger conversation on the other side, Joe, after the break. But Clint Kubiak, offensive coordinator in Seattle, talked about Metcalf with the Tacoma News-Tribune, saying, down the field threat, strong physical player, extremely excited about getting to work with him, and his physical presence brings a lot, can bring a lot to our offense. And that's not the quote that makes me think that you should ditch any sort of Metcalf idea. I think DK Metcalf is a very popular idea among Bills fans, and with good reason. He's in the final year of a contract, yada, yada. However, their head coach Mike McDonald said that each candidate for offensive coordinator this year was asked about the plan for DK Metcalf. Like, that was part of the job because he had his fewest targets since his rookie season. He was not as big a part of their offense. And Kubiak said, Mike McDonald said that Kubiak had the best vision for DK Metcalf, and implementing it will be part of the offseason work. So not only is he there and they think he's important, but the guy that got the job got it because he had the best vision for Metcalf. So, it's a dream. I just might really put it on the back burner if I'm a Bills fan. Nice player, though.
Disappointing because I like the player.
Yeah, it just – I don't think that's a tea leaves one. Garrett we can talk about because he wants out. And will they trade him is another question. But Metcalf, I don't think they have a mind to move him. 803-0550, 1-888-550-2550. Put up a Twitter poll about big game hunting and if the Bills should be swinging big this year. We'll give that a quick check, give you some results on that, and keep rolling. Jeremy and Joe on WGR. Brewing. I've already got a couple of Wayland dates on the schedule coming up. Days I know I'll be there to hang out, grab some beer, grab some food. The place is my favorite. 3740 North Buffalo Street. That's indoors, outdoors. When the weather cooperates even a little bit, they've got great space out there. Their patio, their fire pits. There's a beer garden. A space really for everyone at Wayland, whether it comes to a big event like a wedding or a corporate event or a gathering, a shower, anything like that, a holiday party, or private suites for intimate dinners or exclusive tastings or a fantasy football draft. No matter your group size, up to 220, they're going to have a space for you to host your event. And there's always something happening. Kids eat free on Mondays. Mondays are a vibe at Wayland. Let me tell you, it's a great time. Kids eat free. Get there for that. $5 drafts and trivia on Wednesday. Everyone loves a good trivia night. Stuff on the weekends going on. Last time we went, we happened upon a party with princess characters, and it was just a great time. So getting to Wayland is always something that's on our list of things to do. Great place for the family, for the kids, for everybody, for food, for drink. It's a great spot. And for events, book your midweek event with 75-plus guests for Wednesdays or Thursdays, and through July, you pay a $0 room fee. Visit Wayland Brewing Company today. Find your way to great beer at 3740 North Buffalo Street in Orchard Park. That's Wayland Brewing.
The opening game of the Four Nations Faceoff goes to Canada, but it did take overtime to beat Sweden. They got up 2-0, the Canadians did in that game. Sweden fought back, got it to OT, where Canada wins 4-3 on a Mitch Marner overtime goal. The game got going right away with a tic-tac-toe play from McDavid to Crosby to McKinnon. Dahlin for Sweden played just over 17 minutes on the night, had some moments. He threw McDavid to the ice in one moment. He saved a goal in the second period that was about to cross the line, but they fall in overtime. Tonight's game is the U.S. and Finland. That'll be just after 8 o'clock on ESPN. And then Saturday, the big one between Canada and U.S. at 8 o'clock Saturday night. To football. Looking around the league, the Jacksonville Jaguars need a GM, and they have announced officially that they have interviewed Terrence Gray, the director of player personnel for the Bills, who's considered a serious candidate right now for that job. Travis Kelce says on his podcast that he is going to take some time to decide whether or not he'll return to the Chiefs in 2025, at least opening the door to retirement. And the Bengals, who have got some problems this offseason keeping some of their own, have another name on that list. Ian Rappaport reports linebacker Jermaine Pratt, who's been a starter for the Bengals since 2019 at linebacker, has requested a trade from the team. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business.
We're at the point right now with this organization where giving up a draft and a half to get a player like that to be the closer, right? The one player that comes in to get you over the finish line, not unlike what Saquon Barkley was in free agency for the Eagles last year. That's what these teams are looking for, those one or two defining players that take you to the next level, and certainly he's one of them, but it's a boatload. It's a truckload of picks. It's a truckload of money. I'm not sure there's a lot of GMs or front offices right now that would actually pull that trigger, but we've seen them do this with Von Miller one time in free agency. We've seen one big swing. Why can't there be one more?
Mike Giannetti of Spot Track with Mike Shope and the Bulldog yesterday. Good morning, Jeremy and Joe. Talking about Myles Garrett and the idea of a big fish right there. Mentioned DK Metcalf last segment. You can give us a call on the Four Nations if you want to throw something our way. We gave our review of it. Great game. Great. I mean, so far the tournament looks awesome. It's going to be a game tonight between the U.S. and Finland, then a doubleheader on Saturday and a doubleheader on Monday, I believe, President's Day.
I think that's right. Yep.
All the way down to the finals. So we'll see how it goes. But one game in, the level of hockey, the buy-in from players, it's awesome. It was great last night. Canada wins in overtime. So if you want to throw a thought on that, we're happy to have it. But on Metcalf, maybe that one is just something we should push to the side.
Yeah, because even if the coach having a plan for him and kind of foreseeing that working doesn't mean they'll agree on money. Right?
No, that's right. That's right.
So that would mean for this year, you might think it's more likely that he's on the team. Mike McDonald, I'm sure the head coach, would know where they stand or what the chances are of having a long-term relationship with him if that's the question he's asking a potential offensive coordinator.
Right. How are you best going to use this guy?
Yeah. So he would have, I'm sure, a pretty good idea, but he's not under contract yet. Like, if I don't know what he's going to want or what they're going to be willing to pay him. They do have another great wide receiver in Jackson Smith-Njigba who will be approaching an extension when they'll have to pay Metcalf after this season. So, teams can figure out a way to pay two receivers. The Eagles did it, right? They have Brown and Smith, and they have the big quarterback contract that the Seahawks don't.
Right. The Bengals did it. Even though Higgins is going to leave, they just had him on. Well, I guess that's not true. Higgins was on a franchise tag and Chase is on a rookie deal, so I take that back. Never mind. The Bengals probably should do it.
They could do it.
They could do it.
They're just choosing
in fact, to that point, Joe Burrow is out here openly campaigning that they do what the Eagles do, what is the Eagles' model? Pay everyone on offense and draft defense with a couple of pieces in there you're going to pay. But the Eagles paid everybody on the offense. That is
everybody.
Two top 10 receiver salaries, an expensive offensive line, a $50 million quarterback, a high-paid running back, a high-paid tight end. Like, the Eagles have pushed a lot of money into the future and made it all about maximizing their window here, and they've made a pair of Super Bowls, and they got to win now.
Yeah. So circling that back to the Seahawks, I feel like they should have the financial flexibility to just pay Metcalf 30. What's the number on that? 30. It's 30 million. At least, right?
He's. I mean, it'll be his third contract, not his second contract. So to me, that's
yep.
He's not highest paid in the league caliber kind of guy on this next deal. Maybe he's a deadline guy. Maybe it's a next year idea for DK Metcalf to leave Seattle. But right, like you said, as we've kind of laid out, their head coach saying that the offensive coordinators got the job in part based on how they answered the question, what would you do with DK Metcalf? That was important to them.
And I don't think the way they talked about it, like it's not the same as, Lindy Ruff when he showed up got asked about Jeff Skinner a couple of times, right? And he gave you I think Jeff's a good player, good goal scorer. Like that was okay. You had a different plan for him. You're going to get asked about it. You don't want to be, throwing the guy under the bus yet. Like the way the Seahawks are, it's not like, hey, what do you think of DK Metcalf? Oh, he's a pretty good player. Like I think it sounds like it's going beyond that. I'm rooting for it to get ugly though. Like I'm rooting for, I guess it'd be tough, right? Because how would it get ugly? If they like him and they want to use him, then the only way there could be a divorce here would be if they're just so far apart on money. And then, okay, if because I love him as an idea for the Bills. Like, I think he is the perfect type of receiver for what they need. They need down the field. And they could use a guy that I think is a number one on the outside. And even though he's not the best in football, I think he's a perfect skill set. But if he works his way out of Seattle because he's saying, I want $35 million a year, and they're saying, yeah, we're thinking like 28.
Well,
do you want to get him if it's going to cost you $35 million? Like that might be the only path to him getting out of Seattle right now.
No, and I don't think the Bills are going to be. I mean, I'm not interested in him at that price. The bigger question, Garrett, Max Crosby, Metcalf, do you expect Bean to do something big? Leave a blank space there. Just big trade, big free agent signing. Do you expect we can make this signing Josh Sweat if you want to do that? I mean, a fish, right? A guy that's coming off a Super Bowl win. What do you think about the Bills landing a big fish in a trade or a free agent signing? And the options I've presented at the Twitter poll are: you expect it, you demand it, you expect it and demand it, or you're really more thinking about the draft. It's not about the trade and free agency route for you. It's more, take a bunch of guys, let's build this defense up, finger quotes here, the right way, no shortcuts. Where are you on this? I fully expect them to do something large.
Yeah.
I don't think Brandon Beane can help himself. The big baller Beane stuff is kind of a funny meme and maybe gets overplayed a bit, but he gets that reputation because, he made the trade for Diggs. He made the signing for Vaughn. He made all the moves to get up to get Josh. He trades up all the time, not huge trade-ups, modest trade-ups, whether that's for Elam or Kincaid or even
Edmonds.
Dawson Knox, right. Edmonds. Right, like this is a team that usually sees what it wants and goes and gets it. And I think there have been a couple of years in a row here where maybe the thing that they wanted was just out of their reach, whether that's Trent McDuffie or the receiver, Brian Thomas Jr. this year, right? Maybe they wanted that, and that's why they ultimately trade down. I think they've been responsible for a couple years in a row, basically since signing Vaughn, right? No real big move since signing Vaughn. Is that wrong? Connor McGovern?
No, nothing that qualifies on the level that we're talking.
Right. Vaughn is the big whale move. Mitch Morse was a big move at the time, highest paid center. I think they are due to make a large move. And listening to Mike Giannetti yesterday, who we just played, Joe, listening to him talk about the AFC, how the Chiefs are in real trouble in the cap. They're old. They're going to be good. They're still going to be good, but they're going to go ahead and kind of start to do this thing again where they have to draft a tackle and part ways with some older players, and Derrick Henry's not getting any younger, and the Bengals have a lot of work to do on their defense. He kind of laid it out, and when we talked to who did we talk to yesterday? Steven Ruiz,
yeah.
He said, I think it's the Bills' time. And if it's the Bills' time and it lines up that way and they went through their transition year and now's the next step, then I think that next step commands a signature piece. And I fully expect Beane to do something to to land a signature piece. So
I think I'd be surprised if he didn't. I think I'd be surprised if even Josh Sweat, who's a good player, if their biggest move was anything less than that between now and training camp, I would be floored. I don't know. Like they've escaped all this dead cap. They have this need for star players. There are enough of them available or that become available in an offseason. And Bean, like you said, is shown over time to be aggressive in situations like this. I still think back to his end of season press conference when he didn't outright say it, but he said, like, when talking about the receivers in the offense, like, oh, we might have been really close, though, on another deal. Like, he kind of led you to believe that he was right about to trade for Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
And how different, I mean, that we would add that to the list if he had been here, right? Because if you think about Cooper in that way, Cooper, when they trade for him, if that had just gone great, that would just be added to the list, right? Like, if they had envisioned what they would have envisioned for him when they traded for him, might be a good question. But if Amari Cooper was just a 1,200-yard receiver when they acquired him, we would just add him to the list. Like, oh, that was them going out and getting a number one receiver when they could. Had they traded for Devontae Adams instead, and he was open all the time and was getting way more targets than Cooper ended up getting, like, we'd add that to the list. Like, I think Bean Rasul Douglas the year before, right? Like, that is, we need a corner. Let me go get the best veteran I can get my hands on. I'll give you a day 2 pick. Like, I just think he shows that when he needs something, he's gonna go get it done. Yep. Well, he's gonna try to go get it done. You can't control everything, but he's pretty good. He's pretty good at getting it done. Like, it's a good comparison to the hockey team right now. Like, you can want to do something big all you want. How good are you at executing it? And I feel like Bean's shown that he's got a pretty good hit rate, that it's not just wanting to do it, not just having the phone call with the other GM. Like, you got to beat the market to get some of those deals done. Yeah. And I trust him to do that.
If not a good hit rate, at least a good swing rate. He swings, He's going to swing for that. And I fully expect it this year. Sometimes it gets treated as, and I think it gets oversold, you're going to mortgage the future. Didn't we watch the Bills mortgage the future? They kind of did when they extended Diggs and they signed for Vaughn and all these things. They just paid the price of all that mortgaging of the future. And what did they do? They got to the AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
So I think it's always oversold. The cap stuff is oversold. They just took their medicine. The fact that I like to point out the Diggs trade. The Diggs trade is another example of no half measures. Why'd they do it? Hey, we can get a second-round pick, and this transition year we're already going to be going through. We can go through it even more and have a bigger cap hit all smashed into 1 year instead of over 2 years. Let's take the whole hit now. Let's do it all right now.
Yeah.
That in a different way, is that not like a go for it? Hey, let's go for it. Let's take as much dead cap as we can right now. We're all in for dead cap because that'll help us next year. I think it's kind of in Bean's DNA. And the Bills, last year would not have been sold as a win now year until, you get further into the season. I think this year coming up is a win now year. And if you want to say it's a 3-year little mini window, and then maybe there's a transition afterwards where Josh Allen is the MVP again and they go to the AFC Championship, whatever. I just think they're entering this win now window and identifying core pieces. And somebody that's in the league now is going to be part of that core. Whether that is Crosby or Garrett, maybe not DK Metcalf. I don't know about. I'd be surprised about T. Higgins myself. But I just think they're going to swing big. They have to. I think they have to. It calls for it, and the GM has, the guts for it.
I wonder, too, like, when they think about this, how much would they be thinking about other teams? Maybe not, but, man, watching the Super Bowl and watching that whole Chiefs season, knowing they beat the Bills, I want to feel like this is an offseason where you have an opportunity to jump them. Like you haven't, and you've never beaten them. And even if they did on paper, we still wouldn't believe it until we see it, that they could beat them in the postseason. But that roster's got holes too, and it's got a lot of them on offense. And maybe Kelsey retires, like that I don't know how impactful you think that actually even is to their offense right now. But
Kelsey has to retire, does he not? The Chiefs probably don't want him back.
But without saying it, right? Because they would never. Right. I saw he has like a really low dead cap number, so it's like an out. But they're not just gonna cut him.
They save, I think, $17 million. Let me double check that. But we've got clips from the game where this dude didn't try. He mailed in the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
he was terrible in this game. His effort on blocking, his effort on routes. I can't imagine a world where they want him back, other than, I guess, as a legacy player. His cap hit is 19.
Yeah, no, wouldn't it be,
hey,
you will come back at $7 million as like an end of season, retire as a Chief if you still want to play. But would they even feel like that's insulting to him?
Yeah, he's going to be 36. And last year, granted, he had that game on Christmas against the Steelers where he had a good day and made a guy miss a tackle, like the slowest missed tackle of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. Due respect to him. He's been an incredible player. He's one of the best tight ends of all time. I just think I think they're done there.
I think they're done too. I think the good news for them is like they're not barren at pass catcher. Like,
no.
Worthy doing what he did in year one would make me optimistic. Rice existing, although I think he gets suspended and he's still coming off the injury, so that's kind of a question mark. But that's kind of it, isn't it? Like, that's where I would wonder, can the Bills jump them at least on paper? Because sure, the Bills have their holes. They could use some stars on defense. Garrett would be great, obviously. But the Bills don't have like a ton of work to do. Like, they have some things they need the star player. Kansas City, I don't know. I feel like they need 2 more pass catchers. They need a bunch of linemen up front. They could use a running back. They don't have to go crazy with that, but they could definitely use a running back next year. That's most of it. Like, I think the surrounding infrastructure around Mahomes on offense kind of has to be rebuilt. And I don't feel like the Bills have to rebuild anything on offense or defense. I just think they need like a guy. And I want, what's harder, building up like a whole unit or building up or just landing one guy? Because there aren't many, Myles Garretts that are going to be available. If you don't win those sweepstakes, if the Browns say, yeah, we want to trade him to the NFC, like you might be stuck. Mm-hmm. We just can't get a star. Max Crosby's not available. They want to trade him to the NFC. What are we supposed to do?
803-0550, 1-888-550-2550. The poll we posted about this, are you expecting or demanding? 39% expect the Bills to land a big fish. Yeah. Another 26% expect it and demand it. Another 18% demand. I've got 16%. That's it, saying let's talk about the draft instead.
Is expected though only defensive end?
No. No.
How many positions would you expect? Like, we just kind of said, like, T. Higgins, we don't really expect that, do we? That would answer, that's a big move, but it's it's a position where maybe we don't think they do it. Like, we don't think they'll do it at running back. We don't think they'll do it anywhere else on the offense. Like, would corner be the only other one? Like, I'm not expecting them to do something huge at safety, but maybe I'm wrong on that.
I'd put corner, I'd put safety, I'd put defensive tackle, I'd put everything on the defense here, possibly. What about Justin Reed, safety for the Chiefs, UFA? Wouldn't shock me at all. Like, that would be a big move to go out and sign him. DJ Jones is a defensive tackle for Denver. Maybe he's not exactly like a household name, but I think that this team is going to go out and use free agency the way they did when they brought in Beasley and Sanders and, even guys like, I said Mitch Morse earlier. I just think it's going to be a year where there are going to be NFL players that are added to this roster.
Yeah, I guess safety will be an interesting one because, in essence, or in theory, I would think I don't want to care about who's already there. If you could tell me the best player you could get is a safety, and I can get a star at that position. If Javon Holland wants to come here, then I think I just want to do it. I guess that's where I'm not expecting it, though. Like, defensive tackle, corner, very easy to just plug in a star, and the depth chart just kind of makes sense. Whereas to expect them to add a big-name safety would be to expect them to call it quits on a second-round pick this quick. And I feel like that might be a little aggressive even for them.
Did they not? I mean, call it quits or just have him as depth. They drafted Rousseau and Basham, and then the next year,
2 years later.
Was Vaughn.
Basham played, I think, 2 years for the Bills, and then they traded him for like a sixth. Right, Like it wasn't much. That second year, though, when he's on the team, how much does he play? He's active for 15 games, and
I guess
he's on the field.
To answer your question, though, about calling it quits.
He plays 40% of snaps that second year for the Bills.
I don't think it means they have to call it quits on Cole Bishop, but what you're about to say about Bishop is the same thing I would say about Coleman, which is you should absolutely hope and believe that there's a lot more there. There's stuff coming from their game, but I don't know that either one of them should stop you from just immediately getting better. Should I not do something because Coleman is supposed to fill in that role. I've got Josh Allen in his prime off an MVP season, and the AFC is mine for the taking if I make the right moves. I can't gamble with these younger players definitely making that jump. I'd like them to, but I'm not positive they will, and I can't stop myself from signing a stud that would come here on the hope that guy does it.
I guess the only difference there for me would be that receiver, if you let's just say they sign T. Higgins, Coleman still plays. He wouldn't play as much. He wouldn't have as many targets, but he would still get on the field and have an opportunity to grow and to develop and to have some sort of impact, even if it's more specialized. Versus if they sign Javon Holland, Cole Bishop doesn't play all season unless there's an injury. Like unless you're making him like a. Well, I guess you could do this. If you see value in him and he looks like he's growing and making steps, but you've signed Javon Holland, do you want to do the thing with him that they've done with like all these other safeties recently, like make him a big nickel or whatever?
Yeah, it's in the mix. It's in the mix. 803-0550 to join us, 1-888-550-2550. Jeremy and Joe here on WGR. It's messy out there, so plan accordingly.
Oh, the James Cook news has hit the big wire.
I saw Rappaport has it.
Yeah.
James Cook wants $15 million.
Well, because he doubled down. He tweeted and retweeted yesterday about wanting $15 million a year.
All right.
So he went from Instagram to Twitter now. He wants everyone on all platforms to know that he wants $15 million per year.
Okay. Let's talk about that on the other side. Not just that he wants it, how he's already decided to tell us.
Yeah.
803-0550, Jeremy and Joe, Four Nations underway. It was great last night. You want to give us a thought on that? You can. We'd love to hear from you. Phones are open for you. Give us a ring. 803-0550 on WGR. Jeremy White here for FanDuel Sportsbook, official partner of WGR. College basketball season in full swing, March fast approaching, and you can, of course, jump in with FanDuel. Right now, new customers on FanDuel get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet hits. That's $150 in bonus bets to bet on everything from conference clashes to tournament upsets and who's cutting down the nets as well. If you've been wanting to join FanDuel, waiting, there's no better time. The app's easy to use. When you win, you get paid instantly. So visit FanDuel.com/white and get in on the college hoops action before March kicks off. FanDuel.com, FanDuel Sportsbook, official partner of WGR. 21 plus and physically present in New York. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY.
Canada wins over Sweden in the first game of the Four Nations Faceoff. The game did take overtime, and since the 3-2-1 point system for this tournament, 2 points for Canada, 1 for Sweden. So if the U.S. wins tonight against Finland in regulation, that would be 3, and they would go to first place. The top 2 teams will make the championship after everybody plays each other once. Tonight, USA and Finland is at 8 o'clock. That will be on ESPN. To football, Travis Kelce says that he needs to take some time to decide what he wants to do in 2025. He will be 36 years old. He has a big out in his contract, too, with the Chiefs. So maybe we have seen the last of Kelce in Kansas City. Bills Director of Player Personnel, Terrence Gray, getting an official interview with the Jacksonville Jaguars for their GM vacancy. He might even be considered the lead favorite for that job right now, but we'll see what the Jags end up doing. Those are your one more from Ian Rappaport in Cincinnati. The Bengals having lots of trouble keeping good players. Jermaine Pratt, their starting linebacker of 5 years, has reportedly asked for a trade from Cincinnati. Add that to Trey Hendrickson, who did that during last season as well. Those are your Paddock Chevrolet sports headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business.
You have to consider the context of the team. I think if you have a passing game where you have playmakers who can consistently produce explosive plays, you don't really need that special running back who can turn a 4-yard gain into a 25-yard gain, right? But if you don't have those guys, and Buffalo has kind of been struggling to find that guy. You saw that with the trade for Amari Cooper, which didn't really work out, although he gave you a couple of splash plays when he first got there. I think you have to consider it. I think you have to consider maybe overpaying a running back who can turn those 4-yard gains into 25-yard gains.
Stephen Ruiz with us yesterday. Stephen Ruiz of The Ringer. All right, so James Cook, Jeremy and Joe, good morning. So yesterday it was a little clunky, Joe, to say James Cook has indicated via an Instagram live feed where he pinned his own tweet claiming he wants $15 million a year. That's...
Yep.
You hear that, you're like, okay, he wants $15 million. It's much more clear when instead on Twitter he reposts with the 100s emoji, like, hey, this is on point.
4 times he did the hundreds emoji.
4 100 emojis to someone, Poppy, that tweeted, if you think James Cook ain't worth 15, you must have been dropped headfirst through a table. Pay him.
Yeah.
So that's a little easier to say, like, okay, he wants $15 million a year. Which yesterday, a lot of the talk around, the station and now maybe the league gets into this. Should James Cook get $15 million a year? That is top 2 running back money. My question now is this: how do you think the Bills like this? This public pay the man?
Because that is not. Man, we talked about how they don't have really any, holdouts or things get ugly once, off-season stuff shows up. Over contracts, at least, right? Like, you had one day at minicamp with Diggs 2 years ago, and that's kind of it. Has there been something like this for a guy? I'm sure there's been something over 7 years, right?
The biggest I've got is Cole Beasley. It got ugly at the end.
Okay.
He was given permission to seek a trade, and but even
Quentin
then,
Spain it got ugly with, didn't it? When at the end because the guard for the Bills wanted to start and he wasn't.
He signed and then immediately left after signing, and then talked some stuff on the way out or after he left. But here's a player on the team, you would say part of the core, publicly negotiating / whatever. And right after McDermott gave him so much credit for being laser-focused and locked in, listen, I'm not one to have any problem with Cook wanting to get paid, wanting to get his next deal.
Yep.
The Bills, though, having a problem. Hey, man, why do we say we don't do this on Twitter?
Yeah. Why don't we – isn't that what you would assume they would have done in, the last – well, I guess maybe not. He tweets, 24 hours after Instagram? So, like, if there was a message of, let's do this in-house, let's talk to your agent, whatever, and then, the next day he's tweeting about it again, I do wonder how they'd feel about that. Maybe they just are okay with it. Like, you heard Dawkins trying to pitch Myles Garrett the other day, like, the Bills let you be you. So how far does that extend? If being you is yelling on social media about how much you're worth, maybe the Bills are the type of organization like, yeah, that's fine. I'm good with that.
Right.
I'm good with you thinking you're worth that and being that competitive about it. Doesn't mean we'll give it to you. I would hope it means that they're not going to give him $15 million a year. I think it would be insane if they gave him $15 million a year.
I agree with that. Insane.
Also, given that is clearly where his number is at. So if there's any meeting of the middle on an extension, like if they signed him for $15 million a year, it would feel like James Cook, it would feel like they were desperate to sign James Cook, I think.
I can't envision any scenario that they do.
Sign him at all or sign him for
$15 million a year?
I can't decide if I think they're going to sign him at all or not. Like the way this has already started. Because I don't have a good sense of what the Bills, like, do they have a rule against signing running backs to a second extension? Would they do it under like a real strong hometown discount situation, like where we do it for 8, we do it for 9, but the way that this is starting, if that's their approach, I mean, they're pretty far apart. Like he's getting this year in year 4 of his rookie contract, his salary I think is just over $5 million. So the idea, no, that's not right. It's higher this year than the other years, but his base salary is $5.19 million. Like most of the money from his rookie deal is this year.
Right.
And maybe making the Pro Bowl actually has increased that a little bit.
That does usually kick in an escalator.
Okay.
Or no, that kicks in escalators for fifth-year options. I'm not quite sure about how it does for second-round picks.
Some way or another, Spotrac has his base salary this season at $5.1 million.
Okay.
So if you come to him and say, yeah, we want to do it for 8, I mean, how excited is he to do that? Like, I'm getting an extra $2 million.
Well, it's
right
important
now?
it's important to always know an extra $2 million. If he wants 15, like, oh, perfect. Here, we'll give you $15 million right now, and your average annual value for this 3-year contract is 9.
Right.
That's the thing about being a player in this league. You want to get paid. These teams will offer you, sign on the dotted line, and you will have $17 million guaranteed right now. To say he wants 15, you want 4 years and $60 million? That's not going to happen. If that were the number on the piece of paper that Ian Rappaport tweets out, Cook agrees to this deal. How much of it is actual money that he's going to get? I mean, these deals are not what they're reported.
Yep.
So to just say I want 15 isn't even really helpful for the GM. Like, well, in what structure? What are we talking about here?
Right. Right. Is that what you want? Like it to be read on social media? Do you just want to be known as the second highest paid running back in football when
there are players
get to
that
the AAV?
Yeah, that they want. One, I'm going to get paid, and two, it's about being paid what I'm worth, and it's about the league seeing that my organization respects me on a level. Like, why are the Bills going to redo Josh Allen and pay him as one of the top 2-3 quarterbacks? Because he has earned that, and because it's a level of respect that you're going to get in there.
Yeah.
803-0550. We'll get a call on this. Gordon in Buffalo. Hey, Gordon, good morning.
Good morning, boys. That price of $15 million for a year just seems way too lofty in this running back market. If that's something James Cook would like to discuss with the organization and they tell him that, that's just not something that can happen, whether it be now or after this year, it's a trade for Crosby with Cook in a third. Like, is trading Cook in a third for Crosby a viable option?
I don't ever consider trading a running back a viable option. Because I just don't know a team that would do it. The Colts did it for Trent Richardson way back.
The only reason I'm even thinking about it here is because you picked a team that has Pete Carroll as his head coach, who has consistently been overvaluing running backs for
But you could just draft a running back. I can't, not to say it's wrong. Any sort of offer that includes trading a running back that has tread on the tire and is about to get paid sounds like the dumbest thing a team would ever do. So I kind of feel like it would never happen.
I'm pretty sure it would never happen, but once in a while,
you can find a sucker.
You got to find the sucker. There was a sucker once in Houston that traded his best receiver for a running back. Right, David Johnson for DeAndre Hopkins.
That's pretty dumb.
Is there a sucker like that? That's where I'm wondering about a 73-year-old Pete Carroll. Like, is he the sucker? He has invested way too much in running back in his last years.
Draft a running back with the top 10 pick, or where's Seattle even picking? Seattle's somewhere up there.
Well, no, L.A., Vegas.
Vegas is 6th.
So would he rather have Ashton Jeanty?
Maybe. It's cheaper. I mean, it's a big asset. But Seattle's draft pick is 18th. You know? And by the way, sorry, you're right. Carroll is in Vegas, not Seattle.
Carroll's in Vegas.
Make that mental adjustment.
Yeah.
They're picking 6th. I just can't. I don't get to a spot where I can even ever. If they could trade a running back about to get paid in a deal that gets you a premier defensive end, they should do it 100 times out of 100, and the GM of the other team should be fired on the spot.
Yes.
So, I mean, would I do it? Yes. I would not even think twice.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Joe, we know this is serious because it appears I'm at an Instagram account called Bills Notify that Cook has unfollowed the Bills on Instagram.
Ooh.
We're at DEFCON 3.
No, come on. That doesn't get you DEFCON 3, does it?
The scale goes the other way. It goes from 4, 3, 2 to 1.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so, it's DEFCON 3.
DEFCON 3.
Publicly saying what he wants in terms of $15 million and an unfollow on social. This is hitting. This is going.
Well, what DEFCON are we at then? If I think that there was a TSN interview that Dawkins did with TSN at the Super Bowl, where he ran into Myles Garrett like in the hall.
Yeah.
And that reporter, I didn't check this myself, but when that reporter was talking to Dawkins, one of the questions was about how Myles Garrett only follows 2 teams on social media on Instagram: the Browns and the Bills.
All right,
that's it.
That's DEFCON 3.
So we're both at DEFCON 3. Here we go. All right, Cook for, I don't think Cleveland are suckers. I don't think you could trade James Cook in a Myles Garrett package. I don't think.
No.
Who are the suckers? Pete Carroll and Jerry Jones. There we go. Come on. Jerry Jones would give you something for James Cook right now, wouldn't he? Would he give you your second-round pick back?
I can't.
Come on. He would.
I can't rule it out.
That's the guy.
I cannot take any trade of Cook seriously as him being a piece that gets you something bigger. I don't understand how that would work.
I'm going to look. How many trades have there been in the league involving running backs that weren't the David Johnson trade? I can't think of many, but there's got to be a couple somewhere or another, right? Guy about to get paid is the thing, though, because that's where you need a sucker. Because Cook, could you love the idea of paying him? The one thing about Cook that's different about other running backs about to get paid is tread on the tires. Like I looked at Dalvin Cook for this yesterday. I don't have the number in front of me. I'll get it. But Dalvin Cook, if you look at the totality of the touches that he had in his career, college and pro, by the time it was time for him to get a second contract in the NFL, it's like more than double what James Cook is right now. Because Cook had never really been a featured back until last year. Like, for 2 years, he's gotten a pretty sizable workload. And even that, like, he only plays 50% of the snaps versus guys like Dalvin Cook or Le'Veon Bell when he got paid right around now that have been getting force-fed for, like, 8 years if you take them back to college.
803-0550 to join us. All right. A Cook saga. This is where this is the prequel to 3 years from now, someone saying all the drama with James Cook in finger quotes, right? Once you post on social media like 2 times,
that's it.
We're going to be on cryptic tweet alert. Get ready. If he writes something along the lines about being appreciated or this or that, all right, here we go. Going to be a little bit of a spicy offseason after all. Retweeting the guy that says if you don't think he's worth 15, your head you got dropped through a table on your head is bold.
Yeah.
All right, off and running. Heck of a player. I think he's a good player. I think he's worthy of an extension for the Bills. I wonder how they feel about him going public with it. 803-0550, our phone number, 1-888-550-2550. U.S. and Finland tonight. Revenge game for Finland.
Revenge game?
Yeah,
what do we do to Finland?
Beat him in the 1980 gold medal game.
I don't. it was weird, right? I don't think it was the gold medal game. They needed to win for the gold. I don't think Finland could have won the gold that day, though.
No, it was
I thought that it was like it was like the Premier League. Like it was whoever finished with the most points at the end of it. Am I wrong on that?
You're telling me the 1980 Olympics was not an actual bracketed tournament?
I thought there was a different.
It was just a point system.
Yeah, I'll find it in the break. I think it was a weird format.
Okay.
I don't think that was just the gold medal game. I might be wrong on that. I'm pretty sure though it wasn't just the gold medal game. I'll look.
If you're right about that, then
Finland finished fourth in the 1980 Winter Olympics ice hockey. They finished fourth. They did not get a medal.
I learned something today. I did not know that.
Yeah, it went U.S. gold, Soviet Union silver, Sweden bronze.
So if Finland had won, what would they have picked up? A medal? Had to be a medal.
I think so. Yeah. We'll get it to you when we come back. We got a break.
All right. Well, revenge game nonetheless. Jeremy and Joe on WGR. Jeremy White here. Are you or a loved one a current or former smoker? Are you concerned about your lung health? It's time you met Eddie, Roswell Park's mobile screening unit that's bringing life-saving lung screenings to communities across Western New York. You can meet with Roswell Park's lung screening team and tour Eddie wherever Eddie is around the community. Go to roswellpark.org/Eddie, that's EDDY, and find out upcoming locations. There's a stop in East Aurora and Blaisdell later this month. And today, as they have been for the last couple days, 860 Hurdle Avenue, the Buffalo Fire Department Engine 36. You'll see the mobile unit there. If you're interested in hosting Eddie, you can do that at their website as well, roswellpark.org/Eddie. So get your lung cancer screenings. This mobile unit is here to help the community and communities across Western New York. Learn more. Schedule a screening today at roswellpark.org/EDDY. Quick note from the Four Nations, very quick. Pierre LeBrun pointed out the TV timeouts in this tournament, Joe, are 30 seconds longer than NHL games.
Yes, and
intermissions are 1 minute shorter.
Yep.
And that's something the NHL may want to do for the 25-26 season. So it's a small tweak, but you might have it where commercial load is moved out of intermissions and more into just the regular actual period.
Yep.
Intermissions would get shorter, which, I don't know if that's a trade I would want. I'm not sure I would even notice, but something to monitor.
Very quickly, so this was the final round of what format for the Miracle on Ice, 1980 Winter Olympics. So it was the top 2 teams from each group. So there were 2 groups of 4. 8 teams total. Actually, more than that, but whatever. Top 2 teams from each group play the top 2 teams from the other group once. Points from previous games against their own group carry over, excluding teams who failed to make the medal round. So the U.S. had already played Sweden, so that game carried over into the final round, but they had not played the Soviet Union or Finland, which meant they would play the Soviet Union and Finland. Whoever had the most points after those 3 games would be the winner. So the U.S. went 2-0-1, Soviet Union went 2-1-0, which is why they won.
Gotcha.
So there was an outcome where the Soviet Union could have lost to the U.S. in the Miracle on Ice game and then still won the gold medal had the U.S. not beat Finland.
Gotcha.
Which would have felt very weird.
But the debate shows would have gone nuts with that one.
How much did it even really matter?
Right.
Yeah.
All right, 803-0550 and 1-888-550-2550. Paul Hamilton coming up at 8:30. Joe and I have a fun draft game at 9. I'm stepping aside for a minute. Excuse me, sorry. 803-0550, though, if you want to jump in and be a part of the show or chat on the chat, whatever you got. It's Jeremy and Joe on WGR.
Call Jed.com. Hang on one second. Check out the 2025 Kia K4 sedan, named finalist for the 2025 North American Car of the Year.
Sneaky Joe DiBiase here for Seneca One and Douglas Development. If you have not been to the Seneca One Tower downtown in a while, you've got to get there just even to check it out. I mean, maybe you go to a lot of games down at the arena and you walk by it all the time or walk around it and you wouldn't know. Like, you can see the new paint they've done in recent years, but the inside is incredible. There is a completely redone lobby bar. There's the other half brewing down at the ground floor. Underground's coffee shop. Just every space that they have, where they do like yoga and like table tennis tournaments and whatnot, is a really cool space because you've got like the view down Main Street there. Everything is awesome. 100 apartments, public food hall, everything you need. It really is like a mini city. Seneca One, they're home to businesses, revitalizing downtown, and there is still space available if you're looking to do business at a higher level. You should be at Seneca One. Visit SenecaOneBuffalo.com and be sure to schedule your tour today. Again, it's SenecaOneBuffalo.com. Last night, the Four Nations Faceoff gets rolling in Montreal, Canada and Sweden, and it looked like it could be a blowout early. Canada scored a couple of goals in the first period. Sweden, though, fought back, got the game to overtime, where Canada wins it 4-3 to take the first win of the tournament. Remember, it's a 3-2-1 point system for that tourney, so Canada only gets 2 points. Sidney Crosby, 3 assists on the night, and he extends his winning streak or loseless streak to 26 games for Canada when he's been on the ice. On the other side, Rasmus Dahlin got into it with Connor McDavid a couple of times, had some big hits. He only played 17 minutes and 15 seconds of ice time, did not play in overtime in that game. Tonight is the next game of that tournament, U.S. and Finland, just after 8 o'clock. That game will be on ESPN in Boston. Or also in Montreal for tonight's game between the U.S. and Finland. To football, Travis Kelce on his New Heights podcast says that he will take some time to decide whether or not he'll return to the Chiefs in 2025, so at least opening the door to retirement. In Cincinnati, they've got a lot of good players that already are going to have a tough time keeping a hold of. T. Higgins comes to mind, Trey Hendrickson. Ian Rappaport reports that starting linebacker Jermaine Pratt has requested a trade from the Bengals, so add him to the list of players that they're going to have to try to keep. Shadur Sanders, Colorado quarterback, expected to be one of the first quarterbacks picked in the NFL draft, is visiting today and tomorrow with the Cleveland Browns and the New York Giants. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business.
They need help in the trenches, and I think Sean McDermott wants that, Brandon Beane wants that, whether it's defensive tackle or defensive end, and it is a very good class at both of those positions. It's not just Abdul Carter, it's not just Mason Graham inside from Michigan, and even if teams need those premium positions, there are enough that feel like they are going to be first-round caliber, and it's a really good edge rusher and interior defensive line class, so it will come down to the grades. It'll come down to, of course, what the Bills prioritize and, of course, what they do in free agency, filling some of those defensive needs in the trenches.
Chris Trapasso of CBS Sports. Very good stuff from Chris. Check it out. A lot of good draft stuff coming in the next couple of months from him as well. 803-0550 is the phone number. It's Jeremy and Joe. Talk to Paul Hamilton coming up at 8:30. Talk some hockey, the Four Nations tournament. Try not to rant too much about Dahlin not playing in overtime last night, but I just feel like that Sweden coach doesn't know what he's doing or doesn't know how good Dahlin really is if he's benching him end of the third and into overtime. We're talking James Cook, though. And he is, being a little aggressive, I think, about going after what he wants contract-wise, just more so than you normally see from a Bill. And I'm not against it at all. I don't think it's a problem. I'm not even sure the Bills hate it. I don't know if they care. They are very much an organization that lets you be you. Everyone says it. The way that all the media guys know it, the players talk like that. Dawkins said it at the Super Bowl. They let you be you here. And if being you is being loud about how good you are or whatever, like McDermott, especially his end of season press conference. We can play it back too at some point. The James Cook comment from McDermott about how their backfield kind of operates and how competitive it is with each other, and how Cook will even yell at him on the sidelines, but in a get me on the field type of way. McDermott loves it. And I think a lot of that is where Cook has come from. Cook is still, I'm sure, this a little bit, but he was very quiet, didn't say anything at the start of his Bills career, to now. Again, I'm not saying he's the most boisterous guy in the locker room, but if he's willing to be yelling on the sidelines, you saw how fired up he was after scoring that touchdown in the AFC Championship, and I think McDermott even said that Cook is now in their leadership group. Like, he's somebody that when their leadership group talks to coaches or whatever, like, he's a part of that group. So there's that. There's how much he's improved as a player. The one area I don't really feel like he's improved that much is pass protection. Like, he came into the league with that being a glaring hole and something he needed to get better at if he was ever going to be a regular passing down back. But he grew in all the other ways. His vision as a runner, first and second down guy, he got more physical, he got faster. The numbers bear that out, by the way. Like, I'm not sure what he did workout-wise last offseason to get faster, but there's player tracking with miles per hour now, and the 20-plus or the 15-plus mile-per-hour bursts that you see are far greater than they were in previous years for James Cook. So he's been a very impressive player. I'm kind of caught in the middle because I think I still want to err on the side of caution and not generally wanting to pay a running back a second contract. If there ever was a time to do it, maybe this is a player that you should be okay with it. Because he's not, unless he's going to stay really strong on the $15 million number. If you can get him around 10, then that's a modest running back contract. For the cap going up, it's about the same as James Conner and Chuba Hubbard. Like, we're talking about the secondary backs of the league, if you can get him at that number. And one thing that I always like to look at for running backs, and when it's predictable that they're going to have their drop-off, is looking at their total touches. Look at the mileage on their bodies, because they take a beating. And it's a position where if you lose a step, that's it for you. Typically, that is it for you. You've got to be so good at other things to make up for that. So oftentimes, it's not perfect. Of course, some guys go over it, some guys go under it. But around 2,000 career touches, college plus pro, is a pretty good benchmark. It's a pretty good number to watch for. Guys, once they start to get to 2,000 and above that, that's usually about it. It's usually about it for them. Again, there are anomalies. There are examples of Derrick Henry, for instance. Derrick Henry is blown by 2,000 career touches and looks like he's the same dude. He's a specimen. Adrian Peterson blew by 2,000 career touches and was still a dominant player for a few years after that, and then lasted in the league till he was like 36. But a lot of other guys, Le'Veon Bell, Ezekiel Elliott, Todd Gurley, Dalvin Cook, that was about the number. It was about, right around 2,000. That was it. It's like not to compare them to cars, but when a car reaches 100,000 miles, you just start to think, all right, maybe time for a new one. And the positive about James Cook, that I don't know how often this would be viewed as a positive. It'd usually be more viewed as a risk or a negative for a player. But for me, I even remember saying this when they drafted him. One thing that I liked about selecting James Cook in the second round when they did, not only they traded down twice before they picked him, it was, this dude's got no mileage on the tires. He just wasn't a huge part of the Georgia offense when he was in college. So between not being a feature back in college and not being used a whole hell of a lot in his first year with the Bills, you now compare him to his brother. Total touches before your second contract. Where is James Cook right now stand compared to his brother? James Cook is at 927 career touches, college plus pro. Dalvin Cook, at this same time in his career, which is when he got paid, he was at 1,327. 400 more touches, and that was with a season completely lost to a torn ACL. That matters too. Dalvin Cook had 400 more touches and a torn ACL in his history when the Vikings signed him. Cook does not have the same mileage, and he does not have the same major injury history. Not to say Dalvin had a bunch of them, but James Cook's got nothing major injury-wise. And sure, that can happen to anybody, right? Which is why that's the push and pull for me right now. Like, the pull is, he doesn't really have a lot of tread on the tires. He just came off a year where he was faster than ever, more dynamic than ever. Like, he's become more of a professional than maybe he was at the beginning of his career, if that's a fair, thing to say about him. Like, okay, don't mind it. The counter to that for me always, though, with running backs, and this is not a James Cook point, this is just a running backs point, is they're always, at this age especially, 26, 27 years old, James Cook going his age 26-year-old season. At this point, they're a major injury away for that being it. That's it. Almost never does a running back at this spot in their career sustain a major injury and really come back from it in any sort of productive way. And that's not true of other positions. Like, it's not true of quarterback. It's not even as true of wide receiver. Like, there are a bunch of receivers who have picked up injuries around this age and have gone on to still have great careers after the fact. Tight ends, running backs, it's because of the short lifespan of the running back position. And it's because of that, you lose one step and there's a guy waiting behind you who is a 5th-round pick who's twice as fast as you are now, and it's all about hitting those holes as quickly as possible. Like, that's where I still lean towards, I just don't think I'd want to do it at any cost. Almost any cost, I'm not sure I'd want to do it. I'd be worried. I'd be worried about that guy's an injury away from me being locked into 2-3 more years of a back that I'm no longer expecting anything from. And when you sign a Shakir or a Benford or a Rousseau, any of these other guys, if the same thing were to happen to them, I would think, okay, that stinks. Long road ahead of recovery, but I'm hopeful and optimistic that on the other end of that, they're going to come out nearly as good of a player. We just kind of saw from Matt Milano, didn't we? Like, he wasn't perfect when he came back, but he picked up 2 major injuries in a 2-year span at 29 years old, and within a couple of games, like, oh, that looked like Matt Milano. Remember we played the Jets in Week 17? He's like, that looked like Matt Milano. That looked like a great linebacker. And it's just more rare for that with running back. It's not impossible. It does happen. Peterson did it. Others have done it. But it's a lot harder, I think, for that position. And that would scare me off of any running back for a second contract. Let's go to the phones and go to Anthony in Buffalo. What's up, Anthony?
Hey, good morning, Joe. 2 things here. Number one, with James Cook, is the franchise tag an option for him to get his $15 million for a 1-year deal? And then the second point I wanted to make up was, with this upcoming draft and the defensive ends, the defensive tackles that are, supposed to be very deep, do we, in the past, obviously we haven't really been hitting on those players. Do we really kind of trust that they're going to grade these players properly and, find a stud out of this this new crop of players coming into the league this year? So that was really what I wanted to say. Have a good day, and go Bills.
Thanks, all Anthony. Right. Their draft process, I don't know they always do this, but my biggest critique of them over the years has been more how many times you draft a player where there just doesn't really feel like there's a ceiling. You're drafting a guy that you're pretty sure is going to be productive for you and is going to be someone that's trustworthy, and you feel really solid about being an NFL caliber player. AJ Epinesa comes to mind for me on this. Boogie Basham, although I guess Basham didn't turn out to this, but I remember thinking about him when they drafted him. There have been others. Maybe even Coleman to a lesser extent. Guys that you feel like they're going to be NFL pros, but going for the elite athletic traits that you can morph into a star player. And I'm not saying they've never done that. They have, and it's actually blown up in their face. Like, I think Kyer Elam was a little bit of that. Kyer Elam was a player that did not fit their style of defense at all. But he was big for the position. He was long for the position. He was fast. I think Elam ran a sub 4.40. Yeah, 4.39. Speed, size, and length. And they said, we know he played a defense in college completely different than we do here. But look at all these traits. We could turn that into something. And they didn't. And again, I'm not saying they've never done it either and it's worked. Spencer Brown, I think, was this. Spencer Brown came from a small school, had not played football that long. Remember, he was playing 7-on-7 football only a couple of years before he got drafted. He was a third-round pick, but why they draft him? Because he had like the best athletic profile in the draft. It was, okay, didn't play at a high level, and Allen is this too a little bit, we can take those athletic traits and morph that into a star player, and that has worked. I mean, Spencer Brown, I think, is one of the top 10 right tackles right now in the league. At least the former linemen that like to study this stuff, kind of imply that. So again, I'm not saying they never do it. I think I just like them to do it a little more often. So that's my only critique. It's not even a major one. And then on Cook being franchise tag, my only worry there would be how upset are you making the player? Do you feel like that's a good environment? Do you feel like that's going to get, that's a solution? I don't know. The way Cook's already talking and the way running back is, the way his brother has already been through this and is a voice for him and his agent too, but his brother I think is a big influence probably on this given that he's already gone through it. Like, I know what I would tell him. If I were James Cook's agent, I know what I would tell him. You don't play another snap until you're getting paid. You don't play another snap until you get paid. Because of what we just talked about. You are a significant knee injury away from never getting your payday. Never. In a running back's lifespan, unless, again, you're a all-time great like a Derrick Henry, you got one big payday. That's usually it. And if I'm James Cook, if I'm someone that's close to James Cook, I think the advice I'd want to give him is every snap you take from here on out, you are risking losing your one big payday. Because if he got a significant injury this year, I don't think he'd get it. I don't think he'd ever find his way to the big contract. The big by his standards, big by running back standards. 4 years, $42 million. Instead of that, you get a big injury, you might be looking at like a 1 year, $5 million deal. Like, there's a lot of money you could lose on the table if you're a running back versus, Chris Godwin's a free agent this year at wide receiver off a major injury. I still expect him to get a big payday. Maybe the term isn't there as much for him, but he's going to make money. Mike in Pennsylvania is next. What's up, Mike?
Hey, if I'm the Bills, here's two things. I think James Cook is worried about getting paid, and I think the Bills have the leverage in this situation on not to pay him just because they have a capable back backing him up. I do deserve he should get some, maybe an extension, but not to the tune of $15 million. I would be shocked if he's still a Buffalo Bill after draft day. I just feel like when you go public like that and you're trying to, create leverage, and really all you're doing is creating tension between the organization and you. But I think there's serious doubts on if the Buffalo Bills are going to pay a running back $15 million a year. Listen, Cook is good, but he's not one of the in my opinion, he's not one of the top 5 backs, and he's asking to get paid like that. There's a lot of stuff that I think James Cook doesn't do well, but I do think there's a lot of stuff that he does well. If I'm the Bills, I'm really looking to part ways with him, move off of him, and then just elevate Ray Davis up. I think they're in a great position to do so because of the depth, and there's a lot of the fans out there, I'm one of them, that wanted to see more of Ray Davis. To me, I feel like he can do pretty much most of what James Cook could do in the receiving and running So I feel like the Bills are in a great spot, and if I'm them, I'm allocating that money, that $15 million that you're trying to get, James Cook's trying to get, and I'm allocating that to a receiver, Myles Garrett, whoever, wherever, but not running back.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. All reasonable. All reasonable. I think Cook is a better player than Ray Davis, but I do think Davis is better at certain things. I would actually trust Davis more as a pass catching back right now because he's a better blocker, and I think he probably actually has better hands. I think Cook's a better runner, though. And the numbers bear that out. Like the rushing yards over expected, like Cook is significantly better than Davis. The vision, the burst. I like Davis, though. If you told me Davis had to be their lead back for half a season, like I feel like they'd do completely fine. I don't think they'd miss a beat, even if the player isn't, as good. But I mostly agree. I don't think 15 million is the number anyway. It's the number he's putting out there, but if the Bills want to do 8 and he wants to do 15, like the numbers they're talking about are somewhere in between that. Really, I think the real debate is about, do you want to pay him 10, 11, 12? Like that to me is the range that's more likely. Maybe I'm wrong, though. Maybe he will hold really, really strong on that. One more quick call, and then we'll hit a break. Rick in Hamburg. What's up, Rick?
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Morning.
I just don't think paying a running back that kind of money is worth it. I would, like the other caller said, actually, I would invest it in the interior defensive lineman.
Yeah.
I know you go back, but I'm just reminded of guys drafted in the third round and beyond. Terrell Davis, all these other running backs that turned out to be really good, solid running backs, and you didn't have to pay them. And Saquon Barkley was invisible in the Super Bowl game. Invisible.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks.
I just don't. I would rather, besides, if you look at the Bills' offensive line, I mean, pretty much any halfway decent running back can run behind that line.
Well, that's where, thanks, Rick, for the call. The line point, there are almost 2 layers to it. I think what Barkley kind of showed this year is there are only certain situations where a running back is really that valuable to you. It's if you have a good offensive line or even a great offensive line in front of them. Because that's a good point. If you plug in any average back on this Bills line, you're probably getting pretty good results. At least pretty good. It would be hard to mess it up. But then you have to evaluate, okay, who's the best now at getting away once they're in the open field? My line has done a job. My scheme has done a job to get these running backs to the second and third level. And now I have to decide, how badly do I want somebody that can create more yardage and more big explosive plays once they get to those linebackers and safeties? Because that's what happened in Philadelphia. Last year, they had the same amazing offensive line. And guys like Kenneth Gainwell and, Boston Scott, these no-name average backs would go in there and they get you 3-4 yards a carry because there were holes. But then when it was time to get into the open field and make guys miss, to make a 5-yard run, a 25-yard run, they didn't possess that capability. And that's where you got to almost decide, how valuable is James Cook compared to the average back? The average back is going to run through those holes that Connor McGovern and Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown are creating for them. Now, who's the guy I want to beat the linebackers and beat the safeties? And James Cook just had a phenomenal year doing that. And I think Ray Davis could give you some good results there too. Maybe not as good, though. And I would agree with most of our callers here that, sure, I think Cook's better for this offense, better in those spots, better at creating the explosive plays, but I'm not ready to give $12 to $15 million to get that. Timeout here. We'll get back to some hockey. The Four Nations tournament. I think Dahlin should have played more last night. Ask Paul what he thinks about that. Sweden and Canada got things rolling. Team USA. There's a lot of hockey to get to. Coming back here on WGR. Canada wins over Sweden in the first game of the Four Nations Faceoff. The game did take overtime, and since the 3-2-1 point system for this tournament, 2 points for Canada, 1 for Sweden. So if the U.S. wins tonight against Finland in regulation, that would be 3, and they would go to first place. The top 2 teams will make the championship after everybody plays each other once. Tonight, USA and Finland is at 8 o'clock. That will be on ESPN. To football, Travis Kelce says that he needs to take some time to decide what he wants to do in 2025. He will be 36 years old. He has a big out in his contract, too, with the Chiefs. So maybe we have seen the last of Kelce in Kansas City. Bills Director of Player Personnel Terrence Gray getting an official interview with the Jacksonville Jaguars for their GM vacancy. He might even be considered the lead favorite for that job right now, but we'll see what the Jags end up doing. Those are your one more from Ian Rappaport in Cincinnati. The Bengals having lots of trouble keeping good players. Jermaine Pratt, their starting linebacker of 5 years, has reportedly asked for a trade from Cincinnati. Add that to Trey Hendrickson, who did that during last season as well. Those are your Paddock Chevrolet sports headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. All right, let's talk some hockey, some international hockey. It's Jeremy and Joe. Paul Hamilton joining us now on the Wester hotline. Good morning, Paul. I hope you haven't had to go outside yet because it's very gross out.
I have not gone outside yet.
Good for you. It's gross.
I did not realize it was gross.
You're either stepping on ice or your foot is going through the ice and then your foot is submerged by a puddle that's underneath everything right now. So it's pretty tough.
Yeah, no thank you.
So last night's game, Paul, and the Four Nations tournament, excited to talk about it with you. I mean, I thought the hockey was good. Like, I don't know how much of a question you would have had of how good the quality of the game would have been, but I don't know. Like the hitting was there. They didn't call a lot of penalties, I guess, but the speed and the hitting, like it's just you can't even compare it to what it's replacing in like all-star games in recent years.
The start of it was absolutely insane. I mean, the first goal that was scored 56 seconds into the game. When you have McDavid and Crosby and McKinnon on the ice together, and McDavid gets the puck, gets to Crosby, who's headed towards the net. He does a little pirouette, sends a perfect pass to Nate McKinnon, who's staring at an empty net, and it was just a gorgeous goal. Great skill. And Canada just kept going from there in the first period at least, and McDavid was putting on an absolute clinic out there, and then they scored another gorgeous goal. A little bit later, Point leads a 2-on-1 and gets Marchand for a layup, and now it's 2-0, and I think. Sweden, they didn't have a shot for a lot of the period, and I think they went into the locker room and said, we got to slow this down because if we don't, we're going to get blown right out of the back of this building. And, then they did slow it down somewhat and were able to get themselves back into the hockey game. I mean, Canada, they only had 7 shots in the second period, 6 shots in the third period, and then they put the pedal to the metal in overtime again and had 8 shots in overtime and had an exciting overtime. But it was, then we got to see a good comeback by Sweden. It was able to get back in the hockey game and tie the hockey game. So Sweden's goaltender stood on his head. Gustafsson had, great saves after great saves. And, finally Canada was able to get the overtime victory.
Yeah, and Canada gave you the one thing you might have hoped they would if you're playing them, which is the goaltending isn't maybe what you would expect from a team Canada, and you needed the one soft goal right? Like Kempe coming down the middle is a great shooter, but puck's kind of in the middle of the net. Isn't it almost amazing, Paul, that we haven't had these conversations in forever. I mean, it's the first international best-on-best tournament in 9 years. So this doesn't come up often, but it's almost weird that Canada's got superstars at every position, but they don't in net, I guess, right now. Like, there's no top goalie in the world. They have starters, but no guy that's like a Vezina caliber guy.
Yeah, they got a couple that won the Stanley Cup, but yeah.
That's true.
You're absolutely right that they've always had like top-notch, Patrick Waugh, or Luongo, or
Carey Price.
Brodeur.
Yep.
They've always had a guy like that, and they just didn't. Actually, the goal you brought up, I thought the same thing till I saw the replay. Kempe actually used Doughty as a screen.
Oh, okay.
Because he actually, I think he shot it right through his legs.
Okay.
And they're teammates with the Los Angeles Kings. Mm-hmm. And he kind of set Doughty up, and Doughty, screened his goaltender for him. So, but I thought the same thing you did when I first saw it, and then when I saw the replay, I actually saw what Kempe did.
Paul Hamilton with us yesterday. The Four Nations Faceoff gets rolling. Canada over Sweden in overtime. Paul, how did you think that Dahlin played?
I thought for the first half of the game, he might have been Sweden's best player. I thought. He was skating pretty well. I thought he was getting up into the play. He had that really good play. And right before it, he really defended McKinnon well. McKinnon came down with speed, and Dahlin, I thought, defended him, did a really nice job defending him. And then next thing you know, the puck's behind Gustafsson, and there's Dahlin to sweep it out. He was in the crease. I don't know if it would have made it all the way to the goal line, but there's no sense finding out. And he was back there and swept the puck out. So I thought he did a nice job there. As the game went on, I don't think he was quite as noticeable, but he also doesn't have a key role on that team. He is their number 6 defenseman right now. He doesn't play on either special teams.
Mm-hmm.
Now, interestingly enough, on the second last shift, started about a minute and a half left in the game in regulation, they put him out there with one of the best defensemen in the National Hockey League, Hedman.
Yeah.
He was paired with Hedman, and then he didn't play in overtime. Didn't play at all.
That was mind-boggling to me a little, Paul. Like, even the role that you just kind of described, like he played the fewest shifts of any of their defensemen last night. Like, it was pretty balanced. Like, Hedman played the most. They started playing Carlson a little bit more, but actually what did it end up with? It ended up Hedman and Forsling really playing the most by a lot, and everyone else was pretty close. But like, a lot of Sabre fans were complaining about this last night. Like, I was too. Am I wrong for thinking that, because we're close to the sun here. Like, we watch him every game and every shift. So I watch Jonas Brodin and Gustav Forsling, but clearly not to the same degree. Am I wrong for being confused that they don't see Dahlin as like a defenseman that's a tier above other good defensemen, but Brodin, Ekholm, Forsling, like Carlson at this point? I don't know. Am I wrong for thinking Dahlin is a better option than all of those guys?
It just goes to show you what Sweden thinks of him, that they just don't feel he is blossomed into the defenseman that everybody thought he was going to be when he was drafted in 2018 as the number 1 overall pick. Sweden shows you right there what they feel about him. And the one thing that puzzled me about overtime isn't, I don't think he's leaps and bounds. Forsling really, was great in the playoffs last year and really opened my eyes to the type of defenseman he is and how good he can be. But I think Dahlin could tie his hands behind his back and be a better defensive defenseman than Erik Karlsson. Erik Karlsson cost him the game. Erik Karlsson played twice in overtime. He played 12 seconds and 10 seconds in 2 shifts. And he cost him the game in those 22 seconds. All he did is back into his goaltender. He was so scared of the speed that Marner was coming at him with, and he knows he can't defend, and he knows he's awful at defending, and he basically backed into his goaltender. because he didn't step up and make a play. Dahlin is a much better defenseman than Carlson is, much better. But Carlson has this offensive reputation, whether he's playing for Sweden or whether he's playing for the Pittsburgh Penguins or no matter who he's playing with. And even the offense isn't really there anymore. I mean, it used to be. He used to be the best offensive defenseman you could have. He's never been a good defenseman, good defensive defenseman, and he's just gotten worse. So I don't know why, if you are going to, not go with two of the guys in overtime, but you are going to spot somebody, I don't know why it would be Carlson, for unless you're thinking, well, we have to get some offense out here, we have to score here in overtime, because he's going to kill you defensively, and he certainly did.
Right, and you would think Dahlin could give you at least both on both ends.
Absolutely could. Yeah. I mean, at this point in Carlson's career, Dahlin is so much better than Carlson, and I think even at Carlson's best, he still was so bad defensively that I much rather have Dahlin out in that situation.
Well, because what Dahlin might do there, I mean, he was throwing his body around last night. Like, what he might do is step up on Marner and, I'm not sure he's going to throw a Stevens open ice hit, but he might have tried to step up and made some contact. It's
exactly what he did to McKinnon on that play out. He stepped up on him. And defended very well, I thought, on that McKinnon play right before he had swept that puck out of the net. Exactly what you're talking about is he that's what he did. And I just that's what I didn't get. If you're going to put Carlson on the ice for only 22 seconds, why weren't those 22 seconds Dahlin's?
So tonight, 8 o'clock is USA and Finland, Paul, and then Saturday will be USA and Canada. For your thoughts on Team USA's roster and how it's kind of come together here. They lose Quinn Hughes. They didn't bring Tage Thompson or Cole Caulfield. I know those were a little debatable. But how do you feel like they stack up for the whole tournament now? Do you think they're on Canada's level or close to it compared to maybe, international tournaments of the past?
Well, as far as the whole roster, no. I think they have a very good roster. Don't get me wrong. But I think Canada has a better roster, but you mentioned the goaltending.
Goaltending, yeah.
And Hellebuck is, many people feel, is the best goaltender in the National Hockey League. The only thing about Hellebuck is he's never really had a good playoff.
He was really bad last playoff, right, against, was it Colorado in the first round?
Yeah, but there's a big but to that. A lot of people theorize one of the reasons he has bad playoffs is he's out of gas because he plays so much.
Right, okay.
And if that's the case, he should be pretty good in this tournament because you're right in the middle of the season.
Mm-hmm.
He wouldn't be, quote, out of gas yet if that indeed is the reason why. So you might expect him to be better in what you would see in a competition like this, a playoff or an international competition like this, just because of the time of the year it's being played in. But certainly on paper, Team USA has a much better, situation in goal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like they have bad forwards. I mean, you're coming at your top two centers are Matthews and Eichel.
Mm-hmm.
You got the Tkachuk brothers. You got Hughes. I mean, Connor doesn't get the respect I think he should. I mean, he's got 30 goals already. I think people always overlook him, but, in the lines that you saw in practice, he's going to play with Eichel and Tkachuk, Matthew Tkachuk. So, there's some pretty capable guys, in their lineup, but I just don't think it's as good as Canada's.
Yeah, Connor has scored 30 goals every year of his career since 2017, except the COVID-shortened year, where he got 26. So that's
and he's only 28 years old, but people just I just don't think he gets the respect he should as that type of a goal scorer. Maybe it's because he plays in Winnipeg, and maybe people don't see him as much. Whatever it is, but he just doesn't. And even on defense, I think Canada got a big loss, and Theodore's out for the tournament now.
Mm-hmm.
I understand what Drew Doughty used to be. And through one game, I think it was an absolutely huge mistake.
Mm-hmm.
He only had played 6 games this year.
Yeah.
And he was responsible basically for 2 of the goals against.
Yeah, it looked like it. It looked like he'd only played 6 games.
He got totally outfoxed by Raymond, who just won the battle, and on the first goal, and Raymond came out with the puck and worked it around, and that wound up in the net, and Doughty wound up just running around. He just was not good at all, but I don't blame him. I mean, you know how they call, get into game shape?
Mm-hmm.
He can't be in game shape yet. He's only played 6 games. And you put him in this kind of competition right off the bat? I don't think it's fair to him, to be quite honest with you, at age 35, because he was, he's not as good as he used to be anyway. So I think Canada made a huge error there, and now he's going to have to, take on a bigger role now that, they've lost a defenseman for the tournament.
Paul Hamilton with us on the 4 Nations tonight, USA and Finland at 8. Thanks, Paul.
Take care.
Paul Hamilton on the Western Hotline. Quick timeout here. When we come back, got another good question on James Cook that I think is going to be added to the whole picture here. We're going to be evaluating it, I think, him for a lot of this offseason. 803-0550 is the phone number. It's Jeremy and Joe. This is WGR. It's Jeremy and Joe. We've got the Four Nations tonight, 8 o'clock, U.S. and Finland. It is warming up a little bit this afternoon, so maybe that, walking around on ice and then you step through it to the puddle, maybe that's gone away a little bit. Just more rain. Really gross out, though. Weather's been terrible. When we come back, James Cook. What do we do with this? He's unfollowing the Bills now on Instagram. Like, this is, again, like, how much do we want to take social media stuff to heart? And I don't think you should completely ignore it. But you get this a lot. Dak Prescott did it with the Cowboys, so what do you think? $15 million, $10 million, no extension at all? Should they pay him at all? Let us know what you think. It's Jeremy Joe, 803-0550 is the phone number. This is WGR. Hey, it's Sneaky Joe DiBiase here for Clinton Collision. If your car's taking any kind of hit, no matter how big or small, trust the pros at Clinton Collision. Clinton Collision is a family-owned business. They have been serving Buffalo for over 70 years, earning trust by treating customers just like family. Whether it is a fender bender or if you're just touching up a ding, major repairs, if you got that, Clinton Collision on Clinton Street in Buffalo is the team that I trust, and you can too. In fact, I'll be going this morning to get a ding fixed up. So if you got something, maybe come today, see if you can get in and say hi. Book your free estimate. Call 716-823-2000, or you can visit ClintonCollision.com and be sure to tell them that Sneaky Joe sent you. Canada takes down Sweden in the first game of the Four Nations Faceoff, which got rolling last night. Canada did get up 2-0. Sweden came back, forced overtime, where Mitch Marner won it in OT. It's a 3-2-1 point system, so that win is only worth 2 points to Canada. Could have been worth 3 had they won in regulation. The U.S. plays tonight against Finland. That'll be at 8 o'clock on ESPN before the big matchup on Saturday night between the U.S. and Canada. Rasmus Dahlin, by the way, playing last night, just over 17 minutes of action, was very strong in the first period or two, got weirdly benched, though, at the end of the third, and did not play in overtime for Team Sweden. To football, Travis Kelce says he needs to think about what he's going to do in 2025, opening the door to potentially retiring at the age of 36. Terrence Gray, Bills Director of Player Personnel, getting a interview with the Jacksonville Jaguars officially for their open GM job. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business.
Could he play in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where they are right now in terms of their quarterback situation with Russell and Justin and Aaron. I think a decision has to be made. You know, what's the future plan and what is the plan in the interim? I think there's going to be also a sense of urgency and taking, you know, some guys on the back end of their careers, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward. They're in the latter stages of their career, so they want to win now, and that's a big part of what they want to do. But you also got to have a plan moving forward and at that position. So I think there'll be dialogue there, but those be conversations taking place in that building.
That's Bill Cowher on the Steelers, who might be going to Aaron Rodgers. Good morning, Jeremy and Joe with you.
Did you see Filipponi in the last half hour on the Steelers? Did you see Andrew Filipponi on the Steelers in the last half hour or so?
Not in the last half hour, no.
He tweeted. This is from Ryan Burr, who is NBC Sports and also the Big Ten Network. Filipponi is tweeting about the Steelers have contacted the Jaguars about Trevor Lawrence.
Oh, wow.
And that it would be a first and a second round pick that they would be willing to part with for Trevor Lawrence.
Wow.
And now he has a Photoshop picture of Trevor Lawrence. And so it's just Andrew right now looking at this. But that's an idea I had not even thought about that I guess doesn't seem that crazy, does it?
It depends if Jacksonville wants to start again and try rookie quarterback route with Liam Cohen. That's super interesting. If I'm Lawrence, I'm loving the idea of Liam Cohen and would not want to leave, and Brian Thomas Jr. and they shouldn't be this bad. They shouldn't be this underwhelming in Jacksonville, and the right coach could probably set it in the right direction. But if he doesn't like Lawrence, that's very interesting. Lawrence in Pittsburgh, I mean,
if I'm him, I wonder what I would, because the stink of the Jaguars in general. You know what I mean? The brand of it and, the ownership in Jacksonville versus, how would a guy like Trevor Lawrence view Mike Tomlin and Pittsburgh? It might just feel more stable.
Yeah.
He might feel like everything over there works. They just need a quarterback. So if I go there, that's it. I don't. It depends, right? I don't know what he thinks of Liam Cohen or what he thinks of the ownership, and they don't have a GM right now. I know that Jacksonville doesn't have a very good reputation as an NFL franchise.
Right. Jeremy and Joe with you. Good morning.
They could trade him, by the way. All the cap stuff is easily.
Okay.
$30 million in dead cap if the Jaguars did it with a pre-June 1. $7.5 million in dead cap if they did it post-June 1. So they could pretty easily trade him if someone said they're gonna give him a ton. So I don't know.
All right. If you can, if you're watching us on the feed, I've got new lighting today. I've also kind of rearranged the old home office. I'm here on Thursdays.
Yeah, we got some diplomas back there. What do we got?
I've got my diploma. I've got my wife's law degree on the board. She does her calls down here too, so it's got to be a little bit of a mix.
Yeah, I see the Syracuse orange
yes,
mascot
there's
back
some
there.
Syracuse stuff. I did bring some stuff down to show you because this is the kind of stuff you can't see if you're too far away.
Yeah.
So I've got this to show you, which is the Pebble Beach bag tag. Not bad.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Pebble Beach bag tag. And then there's the Spyglass Hill bag tag that goes there as well.
Is that what you do for all these courses? You come the bag tag? Like
You grab one of these. Here's I got
Okay.
Firestone bag tag. Yeah, it's a good thing to do. And then this is the best one because at Sawgrass you get a bag tag that is personalized. When my father-in-law when I went to Sawgrass, so you see it like it's the island green, the bag tag.
Yeah.
For those of you watching on the feed, you'll see this. If you have a good score, they will etch the score on the green right there. Like you can write a 2.
Yeah, okay.
Or a 3. And what number do I have on there, Joe?
Where is it? Where's the number? Hold on, I don't see it.
That's right. We didn't put a number on that.
Oh, there's no number. You I feel like you should have, even if it was a bad number.
You don't write down a 5.
Put 8 down on it. Yeah.
That's fine.
Let everyone know you went through it. You went through the ringer of
it wasn't even the ringer.
Green and Sawgrass.
I actually have the scorecard from Sawgrass up here, and it is the scorecard that you saved because you played Sawgrass, not because you played well. I'd forgotten what I shot until I opened it up, and it's a 102. It was a brutal day for me that day. There's no reason to have shot a 102. It's
tough golf course, I'm sure.
Sure it is. Anyway, 8030550. So yeah, I got the yardage book if you want to see that. Like that's pretty cool. Some of the
Nice.
stuff. There's the 17th green and how it all plays out. So whatever.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm trying to make this place look a little nicer. I feel like I'm Mr. Rogers now. Come on in, take a look.
I think it's the right combo of smarts and sports right now behind you.
Sure,
I would
sure.
say.
The law degree and all that.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, out the rest of this area down here is not smarts or sports. It's just child hurricane hit. nonstop. It's pretty much the house.
The other side of it?
Yeah, the other side of it is just like,
a jungle gym, basically.
It's a jungle gym and a ball pit and everything. Yeah. It's like someone shook up the house like a snow globe on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, James Cook wants $15 million.
And he's unfollowed the Bills on Instagram. Sound the alarms.
What's the next step in the playbook?
For him?
To go on a podcast and say he thinks he's worth it?
That's next. Yep.
Is that the next step?
Yep.
Speaking of which, before we get to our fun little draft, A.J. Brown posted yesterday, and this is going to be my my little soapbox speech for everybody if you want it. Did you see what A.J. Brown posted?
No.
Good.
Was it a book recommendation?
No.
He had one at the Super Bowl. Did you see it? He had a book at the Super Bowl.
His teammates brought it.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, he said they played a trick on him, and his teammates brought it.
Okay.
So A.J. Brown posted yesterday a very thoughtful thing that lets you into his inner workings, and it was super interesting. It's going to be like an eye of the beholder moment. So he posted on Instagram. A.J. Brown, here's the quote. It's a picture of him catching a touchdown and walking to the end zone, and he wrote, After a few days, I've had time to reflect on being a champion. I tried to feel how everyone made it seem to be a champion, and unfortunately, it was short-lived. 2 days, to be exact, LOL. I'd never been a champion at the highest level before, but I thought my hard work would be justified by winning it all. It wasn't. My thrill for this game comes when I dominate. It's the hunt that does it for me. It's when the DB drops his head and surrenders because he can't bleep with me. The intense battles, early mornings, late nights, sacrifices. I love putting smiles on people's faces. Don't get me wrong. It just wasn't what I thought it would be. It's the journey that I love the most. Back to work.
Okay.
Thoughtful, right?
Yeah.
Not all that surprising. And what did I see? Thousands. Okay, I didn't read thousands. Dozens of people taking that to mean
that he's a me guy that wants the ball.
Yeah. Can you imagine? Can you imagine being so obsessed with being a wide receiver me guy person that you take a post about it's about the sacrifices and practice and dedication and every single and making that about how he wants targets? that what he wrote there. To me, that sounds like something Kobe Bryant would say. Like, we won the title. 2 days later, I'm in the gym. I have to get better. I love the sacrifices. I love the late nights. There's just nothing more than complete and total dedication to being great.
Yeah.
And because he's a wide receiver, people run with that like, oh, wow, look at that. He's not even happy. He's not even happy they won, which is nuts. So
he also tweeted, Brady always says his favorite ring is the next one. The double standards are crazy. So maybe is he talking about the people that are responding to him with like you're a mean guy that wants the ball?
Yes, 100%. That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
We won. 48 hours later, I want to get back out there and be great.
Yeah.
How on earth? You've got if you've got. I mean, listen. I have the exact opposite end of the spectrum of this disease. If you've got the wide receivers are diva diseases, you can't see straight sometimes. You just can't see through it. Here is a guy flat out telling you, I love sacrifices, early mornings, late nights, working hard, and you're like, wow, this guy.
Yeah. What if Brady had done the same thing?
Absolutely.
It would be treated as, this is Jordan. This is the guy who wants to win every single title.
After reading this, I searched quotes from Kobe on greatness. Like, let's play the game, what if Kobe said it, right? Because, and his quote, I actually went ahead and found one. One of the quotes from Kobe was, let me find it here as I was looking. Sorry. He wrote, I think greatness is more of a mindset than it is an actual goal that you have reached. Which is exactly what A.J. Brown just said. I got to the mountaintop. I thought it would feel different. It doesn't. It's about the journey.
Yeah.
Mamba mentality, you know? So good for him. Good for
Mamba
him.
mentality unless you're a wide receiver.
Unless you're a wide receiver, in which case wanting to be great is a problem.
When did this start? Is this all T.O.'s fault?
No.
Like, when did this happen?
You know what? All right, this is a good question. There is a moment in time that is like a benchmark. At one game with the Vikings, the Randy ratio. Fox put a graphic on the screen about how they had to get the ball to Randy Moss, like the Randy ratio. And I feel like people remembered that for 30 years.
Huh. Okay.
It's Keyshawn Johnson wrote a book called Give Me the Damn Ball. That might have been a part of it.
Uh-huh. Right.
It's, these guys want the ball because they're great, and they do their job, and if they're not getting the ball, they say, how come you're not doing your job?
Right.
It's the only position where if you ask why someone else isn't doing their job, it's a negative. These guys want to win. Tight ends want to win. Tackles want to win. Defensive ends want to win. Corners want to win. I mean, when a corner turns and, puts his arms out for a safety that wasn't there, like, wow, look at that guy calling out his safety. Like, maybe he is saying, buddy, that's your job. You have to be better here.
Yep.
So it's kind of unique to football where the idea of getting mad your teammates are not pulling their weight is seen as a negative. Not even that that's what Brown did. Brown just said he demands the best from himself. And he's a guy, A.J. Brown is, that has been outspoken about mental health. And when he was in Tennessee, he talked about that, how at one point in his life he considered taking his own life. He talked about it with a reporter. Like, he's an introspective guy that is... To lay all that out and to write all that on Instagram and have it be taken as like diva, it's kind of stunning to me.
Yeah.
So anyway, there you go. There's my little soapbox. A.J. Brown. He's great. Probably a Hall of Famer, right?
Yes. Does he needs to do more probably, but yes, he's a Hall of Famer, right?
I think so. He's got a lot of career left.
He's 27.
Is he the third best receiver in football?
He's a Hall of Famer. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. Sterling Sharp almost has the same career, and he just made it. He'll have 5 more years, probably at least.
Yep.
Maybe 3 more playing at this level.
Sean writes in, Jerry Maguire has a big influence on wide receiver discourse. Yes, Rod Tidwell.
Oh,
show me the money, show me the money. I got it. Yeah, might be right.
Yep.
We definitely have an ecosystem where, it pays the bills.
Well, it's the only position where you actually have to ask for the ball. Like, it's the only position where you really need you are 100% dependent on somebody else for the opportunity to do your job, right? Like, I guess running back, you say that too because you need the coach to decide to give it to you. But you can do your job and win a rep, and you still might not get anything for it because you might not get the ball thrown your way. Where, again, like every other, you do your job as a running back when you have the ball, you're going to get the yards every time. If you do your job as a quarterback, you're going to get the yards. And if it's in another sport, like, you don't have to really, if you are Steph Curry, you don't have to rely upon someone else to give you the ball every single time you come up the court to shoot a three-pointer.
Right. It helps. Teammates, of course, help you.
But this, it's like it's 100% dependent on the quarterback's got to recognize that you have done your job, and then they have to throw you an accurate pass before you can get the numbers, before you can get get any value of you've done your thing.
And my favorite thing to point out is if you don't ask for the ball and you never get the ball, then people think you didn't do your job.
Right.
I got open all day, but they didn't throw it to me, so people think I didn't play. Yeah,
there's a lot that goes into it. Brown would be a Hall of Famer for me. Is Hurts a Hall of Famer?
Not yet. No.
Not yet?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
He's been to 2. He's won 1. Usually you don't have to do a lot more than that.
I just casually threw out A.J. Brown, the third best receiver in football. He might be like between 3 and 6.
The best receivers in football are Chase
and Jefferson.
Jefferson and Brown. Is that the top 3?
I mean, Nico is near the top.
Yep.
Puka is near the top.
I think Neighbors is going to be near the top very quickly.
A freak show.
He might need a quarterback, though, before he starts getting that recognition.
Yep. There's a lot of different jobs out there and guys that succeed in different ways.
Puka, top 3, 4, 5, I guess.
Great. Puka's great, yeah.
Yeah, he's great. It's just no, I don't want McVay. Like I wonder about how much easier it is when McVay is just going to get you open, but we saw in the Bills game, like Puka will make the play even when he's not open. Like he's ridiculous.
803-0550. Joe and I have a fun game to play, and it's time to play it.
Let's go. Coaching?
So, yes, NFL coaching carousel. This is the closest I can get to what I want with that fantasy game where we draft coordinators.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's not going to happen. But this year in the offseason, there were 7 coaching openings. 7 have been filled.
Okay.
Let's predict the 6 coaching openings next year that will have changes. Like what teams will change their coach by this time next year? We don't have to predict who's going to get the job, just who's getting fired.
Yep, who's getting fired? Who's going to or just any change? Any change. Any change.
Sure, any change. You want to predict Andy Reid retires, you can go for it.
Yep.
But yeah, the 6 openings next year will be, and we'll draft them. Josh has told me that you get the first pick, so we'll snake draft it.
Okay.
The 6 coaching openings next year.
I think the number 1 pick for this is almost got to be Brian Daboll. So the Giants.
Yeah.
I would pick the Giants to have a coaching change.
It would have been my top pick.
Yeah, like it could go well if they trade for Matt Stafford. Like I would expect that goes pretty well, but right now we're sitting with an owner that it wouldn't have been surprising had they done it already, and they don't have a current quarterback. So I feel like very, very tight rope to start the season.
Yeah, so the Giants might not be the most likely to have a bad season, but every team that might have a bad season either has a coach that's been there and made the playoffs or is new.
Right.
Like if you like the Browns for a pick, Kevin Stefanski has made the playoffs and won multiple coaches of the year. They could be bad, but he has some equity built up. And Daboll did make the playoffs, but that was a couple years ago.
Yep.
I think that's probably a good first pick. All right, I'm up next. I'm going to take the Dolphins.
Well, also on my board. Hi. Yeah.
Mike McDaniel, he could have a good year where they win 9 games and still get fired. It feels like he is just in a tenuous spot. I think he's a good offensive mind. I don't know what they're doing defensively in Miami, what's happening there. Their season, of course, fell apart. If Tua is always one injury away. I just think stagnation for Miami could mean an end for McDaniel.
You just got to win. You got to win. The owner is poured everything into winning right now.
You've got to stay close to the Bills in the division. You got to contend. And my first pick is Miami, so I'm going to go with Miami.
All right.
My second pick. These are coaching openings we expect to see next season. I'll take, this might be off the board a bit. I want to save this maybe. I'm leaning.
Who are you picking? You're picking McDermott?
No, I'm leaning on the Bucks.
Ooh, really? Okay.
Their offensive-minded coach left, and Liam Cohen resurrected Baker Mayfield. And if Baker doesn't have a good season because his offensive coordinator left, could Todd Bowles be shown the door? I think it's possible. But I'm not going to do that.
You're not doing that. Okay.
I'm not. I'm picking the Cowboys. Brian Schottenheimer, one and done.
Wow.
Somebody sexy will come on the market. The Cowboys missed that.
Man.
The
Yeah.
Cowboys missed the open market. They kept Mike help me. Mike
McCarthy?
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, I'm getting old. They kept Mike McCarthy because they thought they were going to keep him. Then he walked away from his contract basically because they wouldn't pay him, and they had no choices. So a year from now, they will not have a good season. There'll be disappointment again, and they will see all of the hot coordinators. Maybe that's a Joe Brady or insert names here. I'll take the Cowboys as my second pick.
Interesting. I don't think I would. The only thing I would worry about is that Schottenheimer is just a yes man, and that's all that Jones needs at this point. Like he's Garrett 2.0. All right. I will take for my next pick Indianapolis. I like Steichen, but I've got a combo of year 3, you're trying to develop the quarterback. The quarterback is very unpredictable, and you have a pretty unpredictable owner as well on top of it. I think that's an environment for a coaching change, even though I like Steichen. I think there are some things to like about him. I think he's kind of been sunk by the quarterback not really being all that good so far. So
Next,
I'll take Indy.
Give me the Cardinals. Oh, sorry, you're up next. You get 2 in a row.
That's fine. I wasn't going to take the Cardinals anyway.
Okay, I'm going to take the Cardinals when it's my turn.
All right. I'm going to stick in the division. Yeah, I do. I'm going to take Brian Callahan in Tennessee.
Yep. He's on my board.
I think they're going to be really bad.
He's on my board. The only thing that could work for him is if the rookie quarterback looks good for them.
Yeah.
And there's a belief that he's a big part of bringing that guy along. But yeah.
But on the other hand, if it looks like what it looked like with the Bears this year, and like the rookie quarterback is there, and it just is ugly, like they might think, okay, well, if we want a different voice for this quarterback, we better do it now. We better not waste more time. So Callahan.
Give me the Cardinals. Jonathan Gannon entering year 3. They are competitive. Their division is tough. If the Niners get back on track, they could finish 4th. Kyler Murray, it might be time to really turn it all over if it doesn't go well there.
Yeah.
So it's, if you look at the standings, look at the draft order. Teams that fired their coach and have a new coach entering this year are picking 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 9th, 10th, 12th.
Yep.
They're all the bad teams. They're all there. And if you're trying to find 7 or 8 coaches that could be fired next year, it's not that far until you get to guys like Tomlin or Kyle Shanahan. No. You get to Zach Taylor.
But the reason he was on my board. I did not pick him just because I don't know if the Bengals owner cares enough. He got Marvin Lewis for 17 years.
And it's also not his fault. Like, if you're not going to pay and you're going to miss on picks on defense, I'm going to fire my offensive coach for that? Like, it's definitely not his fault. They won 5 in a row to end the season. He had a great offensive year.
Yeah.
But after the names we were at, Joe, you're at, Dave Canales, I guess, if it doesn't go great for Bryce Young in Carolina. But he played very well.
Yep.
So it's
it's Tomlin getting traded.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It's that. It's
What?
It maybe is Kellen Moore going one and done if it's just like a 1 or 2 win season in New Orleans.
I mean,
that's possible.
Is DeMeco Ryans a crazy answer here?
Maybe a little bit. What about Sean Payton?
It's going well. They just drafted a rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
Like anybody that we didn't mention, I think you have to work hard, and it would be considered a pretty big upset.
We did mention Stefanski. Like Stefanski, I think same thing that I mentioned with Steichen. I think Stefanski's a good coach, but I don't know. Are they giving him a brand new clean slate with whoever they draft in the first round? Like, does he have to win, or has he got? You're a former coach of the year. We're kind of tearing it down a little bit. We stuck you with Watson. We're going to give you a couple of years with Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders, whoever.
Listen, he's been a good coach. We've seen a lot of good coaching from Stefanski, 2-time coach of the year. And they've saddled him with Jameis Winston and Joe Flacco and Deshaun Watson. If the rookie is any good, I think it's easy for him to find more space.
Yeah. The other option would have been picking Jim Harbaugh because for some cheating allegation that he gets fired over.
Right. All right, there you go. There's our next 6 openings drafted.
Dolphins, Cowboys, Giants, Colts, Cardinals, and Titans.
Chris Trapasso texts in, what about Raheem Morris in Atlanta if Michael Penix doesn't take a step?
Good. Not bad.
I think it would only be
I had that written down. That would have been one of my next picks.
Yeah, it would only be year 2. Right?
Yeah, year 2, though.
It
would have to be bad. It would have to be really bad, right?
But, I mean, it's year 2, and Michael Penix, he kind of got the Mahomes season, right, where he played at the very end, and then year 1 comes in year 2.
Well,
how good am I expecting it to be?
Is that what he's getting judged on, or like his defense? He's a defensive-minded coach, right? His defense was terrible last year.
Right.
If Penix looks even good, but they're losing games because the dude's giving up 35 a game on the defensive side, like that could look very poor on him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an honorable mention. It's worth mentioning. 803-0550 to join us, 1-888-550-2550. Jeremy and Joe on WGR. U.S. and Finland tonight in the 4 nations. The Confrontation de Nations.
Yes.
Which is a way better way to say it. It's on the ice there in Montreal. Give us a ring if you want, if you have a thought on the coaching conversation. McDermott not mentioned. Not surprised. I wouldn't put him in the top 6, personally. 803-0550 to join us here on WGR. Jeremy White here for FanDuel Sportsbook, official partner of WGR. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just beginning on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because FanDuel is your home for NBA live betting. Even if you miss the first few minutes of the game or want to bet on a fourth-quarter comeback, you can make your picks from the first whistle until the final buzzer. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. However you want to play, now is the perfect time to join. New FanDuel customers get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/white to join today. That's FanDuel.com/white for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. 21 plus and physically present in New York. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY.
So I think you got to lock a player like that up. You can't let him lead a building. He's still fresh. And I think keeping him and Josh Allen together, I think that's the future of the offense. You know, you drafted Keon. You know, you got all the puzzles put together right there. And I think he's just still scratching the surface. He's still a young back. And as you look at his numbers, they only on the rise. They steady going up. So for me, when you look at a young player and you get a young talent like that, I think you got no choice but to lock him up for the next few years and give him that comfort of you're here, you're Bill. You know, let's go keep winning.
Dalvin Cook on his brother, James Cook. Good morning, Jeremy and Joe. Just reading a Bill Barnwell piece at ESPN.com. He breaks down basically every NFL team and where they would stand in the Myles Garrett sweepstakes.
Okay.
All of them. Like teams that won't trade for Garrett, AFC North teams. Ravens, Bengals, Steelers. Like the Browns probably won't do that, and it's just take them out. Teams that don't need edge rushers, take them out. Broncos, Texans, Rams. Don't need them. Okay? He takes out the teams that are not competitive because Garrett wants to go to a contender and extend. Okay, take them out. Teams that could be involved in a Garrett trade as a third party. None make sense as a landing spot. He lists the Giants and the Jets here and the Vikings. Just the idea that, you know, they've got some pieces locked up. It just doesn't make sense. Okay, on to the next group.
Mm-hmm.
Unlikely but plausible teams that should have a conversation. Arizona, Atlanta, Dallas, Green Bay, Kansas City, Miami, San Francisco, Seattle, Tampa. And then the teams that Garrett puts over the top. Maybe. Bills, Lions, Chargers, Eagles. And he lists 3 that he thinks are perfect spots. Chicago, Indianapolis, and Washington.
Ooh. So
he puts the Bills basically in the top 7 for fits for all the criteria.
He puts. Sorry, was one of his criteria him wanting to go to a Super Bowl contender or no?
Yes.
It was.
He wants to go to. He wants to win a Super Bowl.
And yet he put Indy and Chicago on the perfect fits.
Yeah.
Is that not a little strange?
What he writes about Indy.
I just picked Indy to have their coach fired by the end of next year, but so clearly that's my opinion. Like I don't. Richardson could be great, but I don't know. That seems like a sure thing there. Like, to me, that doesn't sound any different than what he's got in Cleveland right now. I got a good offensive coach, and I've got an unproven quarterback that's coming in.
Well, he basically what he does is he lists the teams that are Super Bowl contenders that he could win with.
Yeah.
And with the other 3, all 3 of those, Washington, Chicago, and Indy, they'll have rookie quarterback deals.
I see.
I mean, you might not like Indy. Was Chicago any closer to winning a Super Bowl? We'll see how Ben Johnson works out, and I think there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic. But the Bears certainly don't have. Oh, we're a Super Bowl contender for you, Myles Garrett. But it might be a fit.
Like I guess the reason why I wouldn't put those 2 teams in is, and this is I don't know what Myles Garrett thinks of them, but my hunch would be the way he's talked that he would tell the Colts, or that the Colts and the Bears wouldn't get him to commit to an extension when they traded for him. Right. So would they be able to outbid everybody else if maybe would the Colts be willing to spend 2 first-round picks plus if they didn't know if Myles Garrett was going to stay long term versus that's where I guess for me Washington is the one perfect fit because they have a rookie quarterback deal, and it's easy to sell him on, we could win the Super Bowl because they were just in the NFC Championship.
That's right. It's easier to sell that. The thing about Washington that's nice for the Bills, so Barnwell also breaks down the history of big trades like this and stars that got traded and what was the price. It includes Tyreek Hill, a first, a second, and a fourth, and a fourth and a sixth. Like there was a big price. He includes DeAndre Hopkins, and Darrelle Revis got a first and a fourth. Richard Seymour was a 2011 first-round pick. Randy Moss, a first and a seventh, and a linebacker. Eric Dickerson, 3 firsts, 3 seconds in a 3-way trade that I learned today included the Bills. I did not know the Dickerson trade between the Colts and the Rams included the Bills. So when he breaks that down, he says, what would it cost to get Garrett? His opinion is, if you offer the 10th pick, that should just do it. The 10th pick is enough.
The 10th pick straight up?
Yes, that if you're offering where the Bills or the Commanders are, you're talking, okay, now it's a first and something.
Right.
Because 2 firsts for a guy approaching 30, it just doesn't happen. And Tyreek Hill did not get 2 firsts. He got a first, a second, a fourth, and a fourth and a sixth in 2 back-to-back years. So that's a first and second, and then, later picks. That's Tyreek Hill at the peak of his powers. I mean, he was incredible at that moment.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
Barnwell says, it probably won't be multiple firsts unless it's a team that's at the end, like the Bills and the Commanders, and even then it might be a first and a second.
The one guy, does he mention Khalil Mack in there? As a guy that was... Because
yes.
Mack was traded for, I thought it was 2 first-round picks to Chicago when that happened. Or maybe I'm remembering it wrong. Maybe it was a first and a second that was the big price that he went for. But because he was 27, so he was a little bit younger, 2 years younger, which might matter big here. But that was 2 first-round picks. That's the closest you're getting.
They sent Mack with a second and sixth.
I see, okay.
So, yes, they did spend 2 firsts, but one of those, and this is important, one of those is a pick slide from the first to the second.
Right.
So
it's a trade down, really.
So there's a great spot where, wow, this looks like a big price, but in reality, if I just slid 15 spots, I didn't give up a first, I just slid.
Right. Which, if that's where, the Bills would have to be to outbid others. Like, hey, we're not just giving you 2 first-round picks straight up, but we would do 2 first-round picks if you're willing to do it more like that, where you're sending us a pick back, and you can still put on your PR like, hey, we required 2 first-round picks, and it might be remembered that way. I just remembered it as Mac just got traded for 2 first-round picks. But I'm still getting value back. Like, I'm not really just giving you them straight up. That might be a way to get closer and outbid teams that I just wonder, is there one team that is willing to just give 2 firsts straight up? Is one team into it that much, Washington, whoever, they feel like, you know what, let's just do it. One thing about Washington that happens a lot, this was a breakdown of them last year, I remember, a point being made, that if you look at any new ownership group throughout sports, what they do in their first 24 months as owner, there's always a big identifying splash move somewhere. It just happened 2 weeks ago. And in the other way, the Dallas Mavericks got a new owner a year ago, and they just traded their superstar player. It happens all over sports. And I think the point I remember being made about Washington was, you watch, at some point, that group, is it Adam Henry and Magic Johnson, they are going to want to do something huge. And more than just drafting Jaden Daniels second overall. So maybe that could be an influence that is not just, hey, is this valuable enough? It might be more bigger picture, a team being willing to trade 2 firsts.
Interesting you say that. Can you think of another team that has new owners?
No. Who?
The Bills.
Oh, right, okay.
The Bills have a couple new owners.
They have, yeah, sure. Yes.
And, hold on.
Yeah.
They certainly have something that they'd like to sell in the next 2 years. No?
Uh-huh.
PSLs. How are we going to get people to commit to watching this team? We're close. Is there a final piece that pushes us across the line?
Yeah.
That gets people to buy these?
You got Vince Carter calling Brandon Beane daily. What you talk to Cleveland today? What'd they say?
Yeah.
Vince Carter and Tracy McGrady. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, don't they own 1%?
When they have a conference call and they're talking, I mean, if you just jumped in, you don't have a controlling interest, but aren't you going to be like, what are we doing? Let's have ourselves an off-season, fellas. What do we got?
Right. Maybe.
There's some new owners. You said new owners. All right, Extendo Sports coming up, and then the Northtown Automotive Extra Point Show. Jeremy and Joe here on WGR.
Breaking sports news airs first here. Guaranteed. WGR Sports Radio 550. 2020 Sports.
Extendo Sports.
Now Jack Harrison tries to get it into the box. It just won't break now. Mikolenko, he launches it high. They'll battle for it inside the penalty area. They need it to break. And it does for Tarkovsky. Oh my word. What an end to the Merseyside derby. The final ever Merseyside derby. And it's 2-2.
Sweet.
You thought you could escape.
Sweet.
There is no escape.
Just.
Everton's late equalizer against Liverpool.
Golf clap. Congratulations. The microcosm of Everton. The biggest moment in like 20 years for Everton is drawing one of the top teams. Interesting. Yeah. Not like they live for that.
You're just mad that your coach got a red card for shaking the ref's
That was
hand.
weird. I don't know why I guess he must have said something too. Yeah, the coach got a 2-game ban.
There were 3 red cards after the
there was a
final
card
whistle.
for an aggressive handshake.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I don't really care about Everton. Like I made this comparison on Twitter. It's like I'm Ohio State and Everton's Michigan, but they're not Michigan. They're Rutgers. Like, why do I hate you? I know why I'm supposed to hate them. But.
You're not allowed to be mad because your team's going to luck its way to the title like the Chiefs almost did. Yeah.
Luck.
Yeah, not even the best team. They're going to win it anyway.
They are absolutely the best team.
They're not better than Arsenal. Arsenal's season is cursed by injuries and nonsense red cards.
Listen to this guy.
Arsenal currently missing Martinelli, Jesus, Saka, and Havertz now for the year. Odegaard was out for a while. They've lost like 4 games on absolute nonsense red cards.
Listen.
And you're up 7. You will lose to them again. Arsenal's gone undefeated against City and Liverpool for like 3 years now. They're definitely the better team.
Listen,
and you're going to win it. And if there was you're just lucky there's no playoffs. If there were no playoffs, guess
Liverpool
who wins?
Be favored. Liverpool will be favored 100%.
Guess who wins the NFL if there's no playoffs? The Chiefs do. Instead, they got to a game and got exposed as, oh, you know what? Actually, you were not that good.
And that's what
would happen.
This is not
what would happen, sir. If Liverpool is forced to play Arsenal.
It's not like Liverpool never gets bad breaks against them, too. That goal that he just played yesterday was scored 3 minutes after stoppage time was supposed to end.
They were probably cheating along the way. I didn't see it, but they were probably cheating.
Stoppage time is a minimum requirement. It's not the
Here we go. Right,
be-all.
Gene Steratore telling me why Liverpool drew yesterday instead of won.
Listen,
and
all I said was you're not allowed to be mad because you're going to win the title. And it's going to be, a bit of a joke.
I'm not mad at all. I think they're going to win it, and they're great. And they are literally the 07 Sabres right now because they're going to lose their best 3 players in the offseason, so they better win.
Good, because then Arsenal's going to win the next 3 titles after that.
It's very strange. It really is like Briere and Drury in first place on a contract year. Like Liverpool's best 3 players are on a contract year. It's very unique. They have a better goal differential than Arsenal easily.
Congratulations. Arsenal's been missing really important players.
This is not the Chiefs winning 1-score games throughout the entire season.
Goal differential easily, he says. What's it like? It's 8 goals?
Yeah. 8 goals that's a good number.
Yeah. Congratulations. Better hold on.
7-point advantage. They have 1 more game against Arsenal. When's that game?
I don't know. Chalk up a loss for you.
Wolves on Sunday. Going to need that one.
Lose to
Liverpool,
Wolves,
Arsenal on May 10th, 10 a.m.
Right. Let's hope Arsenal doesn't have 10 more injuries.
I mean, by then they should be healthy, no?
I don't know. Saka's out for a while.
I'll be away for that.
Havertz and Jesus are out for a while.
I'll be in a bachelor party away that day. I'll have to get that game on somewhere.
All right, we're back tomorrow for a Football Friday. Speaking of soccer, we're going to talk with Peter Marlette of the Buffalo Pro Soccer Stadium project. That'll be tomorrow, so we'll get a good look into what exactly is happening. Maybe you've heard some of the stories and all that, read some of it. We'll talk with Peter in studio tomorrow to get the full rundown of where things are, some of their partnerships with FC Buffalo, all that stuff to maybe build a stadium downtown and get ourselves some USL soccer games. Till then, we'll chat tomorrow. Jeremy and Joe, the Northtown Automotive Extra Point Show is coming up here on WGR.